One to everyone, he was a nobody, just another useless weakling in a world torn apart. By monsters, he is the guy cleaning up the mess after real hunters leave. Kiritani Sho is not even awakened, no mana, no class, and no rank, but every single day he silently trains, sharpening a deadly power he hides from everyone. Not his guildmates, not his captain, and not even his best friend. The Brave Guild is about to run a C-rank dungeon. Sho is hired for his usual job, a gear carrier. In this brutal world, power beats money. Even low-rank hunters act like gods, looking down on those beneath them. To these elites, Kiritani Sho is just a worthless stepping stone. They are dead wrong, and they will learn that soon, before carrying gear. Sho carried a sword. In a past life, he was a legendary knight. He died taking down the Monster Queen in the single most brutal battle humanity had ever faced, a war that cost him every single friend. He watched them fall. In the end, he slew the beast, bleeding out, on the edge of death with a foolish hope to find them again. This hero died saving his world, his reward. Waking up inside the weak body of an absolute nobody, in this strange new world of portals, monsters, and flashy hunters who gain power overnight. Without lifting a finger, Kiritani is just a low-ranked porter. Lowest pay, zero respect. He remembers being legendary, but in this body. He cannot even use mana, still he trains daily, a habit from his past life, or maybe a broken part of him expects to fight again and protect these people. Only one person treats him like an equal. His friend Ren. Ren does not seek fame or power as a hunter. Nor does he care about money. He needs it because his sister is dying. And time is quickly running out. Sho is left reflecting on what it truly means to have something to protect. The next raid is set for tomorrow, and none of them want to end up somewhere dangerous. To everyone's shock, their assigned portal is incredibly sketchy, leading the team to question the captain. They are terrified because rumors are spreading that other hunter teams were completely wiped out there. One of the hunters protests, saying, "This is too much for a team that barely reached D rank." Furious, the captain snaps and tells them to shut up. He warns them not to act like real hunters, saying their opinions mean nothing. Then he pointedly brings up the renewal of Sho's contract, threatening them that if they abandon the job halfway, rumors will ruin their name. The captain glares at Sho, demanding to know how many times he must tell him to fall in line. Ren steps in to defuse the situation, volunteering to go while calling out the captain's fear of bad press before the raid. Seeing Ren step up fires up everyone else. The captain mutters that they are just idiots who only know how to follow orders, walking off and telling them he will be waiting for their return. Left with no choice, Ren tells the crew it is time to move. Standing in front of the portal, the captain orders an analysis before they enter. As they organize the group, they plan exactly how each member. As they prepare to move, Shu notices the thick anxiety in the air. The cleanup crew will have to enter soon, but even the veteran hunters are dragging their feet. Ren warns him that their turn is fast approaching. The tension is through the roof, and Shu, like everyone else, can only pray this won't be his grave. The guild members push forward into the dungeon raid. Soon, an unsettling feeling washes over the entire party as they consider warning their leader, but they quickly brush it off, figuring that since this is a C-rank dungeon, it is nothing their leader cannot handle. The scavengers sense the rising dread. Suddenly, every hunter tenses up as a sudden shift occurs. The captain signals for everyone to stay alert. A terrifying beast emerges from the shadows. Right behind it, a horde of other hideous monsters appear, forcing the group to gear up for battle. The hunters wonder if this is a bit too much for just the entrance, but the captain excels at motivating his men when cash is on the line. He brushes off their worries, calling the beasts mere insects before easily slaying one. Immediately after, he orders the vanguard tanks to lead the charge. The frontline warriors rush forward, successfully holding the monsters back. Meanwhile, the scavengers watch from afar, gathering information and keeping their distance from the battle. Suddenly, a monster unleashes a bizarre screech, and an endless wave of insects floods the room. Terrified, the scavengers scream for the vanguard tanks. An archer screams for everyone to retreat before letting loose an arrow. The shot blows the beasts to pieces, forcing two allies to shield themselves from the searing flames. Just as a hunter assumes the threat is cleared, the captain barks at him to get moving, warning that the final boss is coming. The beast appears instantly, unleashing sheer chaos. The captain quickly coordinates a strike against the creature. However, the beast proves overwhelmingly powerful, easily knocking down several veteran warriors. Despite its colossal size, it moves with terrifying speed. Vanguard screams for magic support, furious about the delay. The mages snap at them to shut up before finally casting their spells. The impact damages the beast, sending its massive body crashing to the ground. Believing the threat is dead, the captain orders the team to harvest its remains, knowing they will fetch a high price. However, the monster's carapace feels unusually hard. Suddenly, to everyone's absolute shock, the monster rises once more. The boss spits a toxic venom. Across the cavern, one hunter screams that they received no warning about any poison, and the captain screams for an immediate retreat. He warns everyone to back off because the toxic mist is highly lethal. Shu thinks to himself that they should have verified the dungeon intel beforehand. Realizing that someone seriously butchered the planning stage, the captain barks at them to stop wasting precious time and hold their breath, since his crew cannot handle this crisis. The captain takes matters into his own hands. He leaps directly onto the beast's head, crushing it with one final blow. The party cheers for the leader's immense power, but he quickly snaps at them. They start checking their gear and treating the wounded hunters. However, to everyone's shock, the battle is far from over. Even though they just defeated that massive creature, the actual dungeon boss is approaching. The group is left in complete disbelief as the true menace finally appears. The captain commands everyone to hold their formation. He also orders them to inject the antidote, warning that those monster feathers trigger instant madness. Right after, the plumes begin pouring down on the party. A stray feather brushes a hunter who instantly begins losing his sanity. The rest panic and flee in terror, ignoring their captain's frantic shouts. Soon, the rest of the squad is hit by madness, their minds collapsing. Shu realizes there has to be a way to survive, but right now, they just need to run. He urges Ren that they must flee with the scavengers immediately, but there is a major problem. Ren has already fallen victim to the corruption. He stubbornly insists they can grab rare loot if they stay, claiming every single item is worth a fortune. He grows completely obsessed with the discarded weapons around them. Convinced they are worth millions, Sho grabs him, trying to drag him away. But Ren fights back, refusing to leave. Driven totally mad, Ren breaks loose and suddenly lunges to attack Kiritani. Shu manages to tackle his companion again. Ren shrieks at Shu to back off and leave him alone, warning him not to interfere while trying to throw him off. Still armed, Ren swings blindly to strike Shu. He rants maniacally about the fortune while Shu desperately begs him to snap out of it. Ren finally reveals he is doing this for his terminally ill sister. He breaks down crying, confessing his dream of becoming a hunter and how unfair it is for her to suffer. The boy weeps that he only wanted to live a happy life with her. Leaving Sho frozen, Ren drops his weapon, letting his sword clatter onto the dirt. The blade embeds itself right beside Sho. Shu softens, agreeing with Ren as he reaches for his hand, telling him that if he retreats and lives, he will see his sister again. Ren bursts into tears, filled with regret for how he treated his loyal friend. Sho tells him it is fine. Ren says they should move now that he has regained his senses, but suddenly a terrifying shift occurs. Out of nowhere, Ren dashes forward with his blade drawn, but a split second later, he suffers a fatal blow. Stunned, Shu cannot comprehend what just occurred. He is horrified as he watches his companion cough up blood, rushing to his side, but Ren only whispers that he is glad his friend is safe. Suddenly, a voice demands where they are going. It is the corrupted captain who stands before them, the very one who threw the strike. Shu spots a dark feather clinging to the leader's armor. Horrified, Shu recalls memories of his past. He once dismissed Ren's talk of saving others as a foolish fantasy, but in this moment, he understands reality better than anyone. He realizes his friend laid down his life to shield him, and he refuses to let that sacrifice be wasted. Meanwhile, the insane captain mocks the fallen hunter. The leader sneers at Shu, calling him a pathetic child holding two weapons, but Shu locks his focus, and he is absolutely certain of one thing: that corrupt hunter is dying today. The raid is a complete disaster, and the rest of the hunters are dead. Glaring at the feathers, the captain questions why this failure occurred. He firmly believes he is incapable of making any errors, blaming the scavengers for blocking the raid party's path. Declaring they do not deserve to live, the captain begins slaughtering them one by one, attempting to erase his own massive failure when his eyes land on Shu. The captain charges with a vicious insult, swinging his blade, but Ren throws. He throws himself in front of the attack to shield Sho as the captain sneers at them. He laughs, hoping Sho is crying, while Shu glares back at the mocking captain. Calling him an insect, the captain laughs and asks if he really thinks he can fight. He boasts about his status as an elite hunter while dismissing Sho as a mere child. The man threatens to slice out the kid's eyes first, but his bragging is cut short. Mid-sentence, Shu moves like lightning, instantly closing the distance. He teleports right behind his enemy before the man can even register what just happened. The captain swings wildly, but Shu slips past, noting the corrupted hunter is still incredibly strong. Still, Shu wants to test the limits of his intense training in this fight. We see the massive avian boss quietly observe the battle unfolding from above. The two warriors clash, exchanging heavy blows, though neither can gain a real advantage. Shu narrowly avoids a deadly sequence and leaps back to catch his breath. Now on the defensive, he hesitates. He knows this fight would end instantly if he had even 1% of his former strength. The captain is stunned, demanding to know how a lowly scavenger can move this fast. Shu realizes he has spent way too much time analyzing his opponent instead of fighting. He smirks, asking the captain if he needs some basic fighting lessons to keep up. Enraged, the captain falls for it and unleashes a devastating special skill, striking Shu. Repeatedly, yet the boy stands firm, seeing a clear gap in his guard. Shu strikes back hard, scoring a direct hit, overjoyed that his efforts are working. He presses the advantage, unleashing a relentless flurry of attacks. Under pressure, the commander retreats. Panic sets in as he realizes a garbage collector is dominating him. Desperate, the leader activates several status buffs and lunges forward with everything. Shu admits his physical sight cannot track this speed, but his battle instincts certainly can. Reading the trajectory, he readies his counter, noticing that the enemy's movements are entirely readable. Shu makes his move, effortlessly dodging the incoming blade and smashing his enemy's weapon to pieces. The devastating force of the blow leaves the leader heavily injured, collapsing to the floor. He howls in agony, shouting curses from the dirt, while Shu looks down. The defeated hunter snarls, asking if he honestly expects to survive this betrayal. Shu offers to help clear his mind before his execution, but realizes the man is too far gone. The wounded warrior yells that as an elite hunter losing is impossible, but Shu cuts his complaints short, delivering the final blow. With the entire squad dead, we see Shu reflect on the overwhelming scale of carnage. Out of nowhere, a mysterious, glowing aura begins to wrap around his body. He questions if this sudden resonance is connected to memories of his previous life. It seems merely gripping the hilt has unlocked a hidden power deep inside him. Raw energy surges through him as his interface starts flashing notifications. The system announces multiple level-ups and reveals his newly unlocked executive class. Glancing over, Shu is relieved to see Ren breathing, realizing his friend survived. Out of everyone, Shu is the sole survivor who actually achieved an awakening. Suddenly, the massive avian monster screeches, prompting Shu to dump all his stat points. Straight into magic, he immediately feels an insane boost from just one single point. Staring down the giant beast, he warns it that he is not the helpless boy from earlier. He dares it to attack, questioning how mana functions in this strange reality. Unleashing itself without any control, he knew hunters had grown far too arrogant. But a moment later, he finally started to grasp how this energy actually flowed. Now fully understanding the flow, Sho delivered a precise strike directly at the beast. His sword pierced straight through the monster, carving out a massive, gaping hole. The beast roared in agony and rage, but Sho snarled at it to shut up, pressing his attack. Leaping back into the fray, he told the creature that death comes in an instant. He slashed through the air, tearing one of the monster's wings completely off. The beast shrieked in agony. Sho knew he only needed one final push. Gathering his focus, he pooled every ounce of mana in his body for an explosive strike. Springing upward, he launched his assault, instantly appearing right above his opponent. The devastating blow landed dead on, spraying dark blood and debris everywhere. The massive boss crashed heavily to the earth, finally defeated and motionless. As the dust settled, Sho struck a victorious pose, then scanned the battlefield. Seeing the lifeless bodies scattered across the bloodied ground, he suddenly collapsed, passing out cold. The overloads were apocalyptic disasters summoned by the Monster Queen to consume the world. To stop this threat, the 8 races of the Alan continent united their forces. Fully aware of her terrifying power, they fought through endless, grueling battles. Against all odds, they won, but then a mocking voice echoed, questioning his hollow victory. It called him pathetic as he realized the nightmare was far from over. He screamed for Helena to flee, but she transformed, whispering that hope was dead. She mocked his failure, telling him to remember the price of his weakness. The agony of his failure would burn into his next life. Suddenly, Sho bolted awake. Gasping for air, he realized he was in a hospital. A stranger sat nearby, observing him. He told Sho he'd been unconscious for 3 days. Sho hoarsely asked who he was. Without answering, the stranger handed over a card. Sho immediately asked about his team. The man praised his loyalty, but his expression quickly turned grim and solemn. He confessed that by the time help arrived, the entire squad was already dead. Shocked, Sho asked about his closest friend, only to learn the funerals were over. They had already laid his comrades to rest while he slept in a coma. The dungeon was actually a dangerous B-rank zone, far too lethal for their small guild. Sho remained silent, listening grimly as the visitor continued to reveal the truth. It turned out their late captain was harboring a dark secret, hiding massive gambling debts. Desperate for cash, he dragged them into that trap. The man added that the anomaly behind the sudden dungeon rank shift was currently being thoroughly investigated by authorities. He left Sho with instructions to call if any lost memories resurfaced. Alone at last, Sho tried to make sense of his sudden, strange awakening. Flipping on the television, a broadcast about the famous double S-rank hunter, Sora, caught his eye. She had unlocked 4 incredible skills during her awakening, making her a national celebrity. Intrigued by her success, Sho decided it was time to evaluate his own power. He discovered a dark ability to grow stronger by absorbing the karma of sinners. Yet he couldn't find any information online about what the system classified as evil. It was clear this unique ability belonged to him, and him alone. Though eager to test its limits, he knew his current E-rank body was far too weak. Memories of his past life with Helena flashed back, making the entire situation highly intriguing. Before long, Sho was officially discharged, ready to face this new reality. He once believed nothing mattered, and they could never truly unleash their skills. He felt entirely helpless, but now standing right in front of the glowing portal, he faces the trial and steps through. Shu knows this is his second chance to undo the past, and he refuses to let history repeat itself. The very next instant, a horde of monsters surrounds him. There is only one choice now. He quickly locks in his very first target. As the beasts charge, Shu vows to climb to the absolute peak. Meanwhile, inside a rehab ward, a nurse declares that the current session has ended, telling the patient to make room for the next person. Nearby, another woman remarks on how fortunate they were to secure a rare healing chamber, asking if the young girl has any family around. The child quietly shakes her head. Her name is Igawa Ari. Suddenly, a new nurse enters to start her shift, playfully chiding her colleague for being so cold, then telling Ari to ignore those words. Ari offers a soft thanks, but as the nurse begins bringing up Ari's brother, the young girl instantly cuts her off, abruptly declaring she has a massive craving for sugar. Ari suffers from mana allergy, a devastating illness with no known cure. It first emerged 50 years ago when dungeons surfaced and wild mana flooded the world. Medical centers can only suppress symptoms using a special physical cube. It felt like an absolute miracle that they secured one for Ari's therapy, leaving the girl herself questioning how they ever pulled it off. Nearby, a news broadcast highlights a double S-rank hunter as she showcases her spectacular abilities on screen. The entire room watches in awe, and Ari stares completely captivated. Suddenly, a young boy sneaks over, startling her with his boundless enthusiasm. He eagerly notes that she unlocked 4 skills when she awakened, boasting that he wants to become a dungeon raider himself despite his tender age. He asks if she thinks it is awesome, and she nods. Moments later, his mother arrives to collect him, offering Ari an apology for the intrusion. Sipping on a drink, Ari reflects that Japan's strongest champion is her exact age. Deep down, she feels completely alienated from this world. The dungeons claimed her family, leaving her feeling like an absolute burden on her brother. Silent tears spill over as she desperately wishes for his presence. A gentle nurse approaches with a warm smile, softly teasing that she will attract unwanted attention if she keeps crying. The nurse gently tries to lift her spirits, saying she must recover quickly and discover true happiness. Because that is precisely what her sibling desires. She adds that she is certain he left a special gift hidden somewhere. Ari smiles and thanks her. Suddenly, the nurse glances outside and spots an unsettling sight. The moon appears warped, and a dazzling beacon erupts where it should never be. Outside, citizens flee in utter panic and confusion, until desperate screams echo, ordering everyone to find immediate cover. Dungeon outbreak has erupted nearby. The Hunters Guild broadcasts an urgent evacuation order to prevent further casualties as panic rises. Voices scream to head toward Building B instantly. A colossal fist shatters the window, narrowly missing Ari as a towering behemoth looms. The monster forces its way inside. Ari freezes, her legs shaking from sheer terror. Shaking uncontrollably, the nurse screams at her to run, but seeing that the girl is completely paralyzed under the creature's creepy gaze, she grabs her and starts dragging her away. She yells that the Hunter Association already knows about the break and hunters will arrive soon, but Ari decides she must buy some time. She refuses to let anyone sacrifice themselves for her again. But a man grabs the nurse, shouting that the girl is already a goner. As the monster closes in, she wonders if things would be different if she had actually possessed real powers. Right on cue, Shu leaps in to shield Ari, noting she acts exactly like her brother, though she must think of those left behind. Confused, Ari asks who he is. Shu ignores the question and asks if her name is Ari Agawa, explaining he was sent by her late brother. He introduces himself as Shu Kiritani, revealing that Ari's brother actually saved his life. With tears in her eyes, she remembers her brother's smile and realizes Shu is the final gift her brother left behind. Meanwhile, Sora Aoki is proving why she is Japan's absolute #1 hunter, tackling a swarm of giant worms inside in a ranked dungeon. For an SS rank hunter, these creatures are absolute light work, allowing her to effortlessly dodge an incoming attack. While Sora effortlessly tears through the beasts, her teammates start gossiping. One of them asks if that lawyer ever got in touch. Noting the guy isn't a ranker, Kaido says it was bold of that lawyer to slide into her direct messages, and Abara chimes in that the guy got his phone snapped right in half. Turns out Sora has no shortage of fans. They keep talking trash while Sora keeps demolishing the giant worms. Yubara says it totally makes sense considering she is an SS ranker. Suddenly, Sora realizes she is surrounded, but she only smirks, thriving on the danger. Kaido remarks that this is why she is working overtime today, but he suddenly senses a massive presence approaching. Thanks to Sora clearing rooms so incredibly fast, the dungeon boss spawns way earlier than expected. Kaido prepares to jump in, but she waves him off, charging headfirst into the colossal beast. Someone hollers to have fun, joking about her extreme method of blowing off steam. Sora hurls a devastating bolt of lightning straight at its face, forcing it to try and burrow deep into the sand. Without wasting a single second, she leaps forward and drives her spear deep into the armor, sending high voltage electricity surging through the cavern. Left speechless, Abara remarks that she really vented all of her frustration on that beast. With the raid wrapped up, a teammate thanks her for the hard work and asks if she is going home. But right then, a colossal eye opens out of nowhere. The ground starts shaking violently as everything goes completely sideways. Kaido panics, wondering how this is possible when the dungeon boss is already dead. He screams at the team to look up toward the dungeon core. Sora finds it bizarre, because the core should never be exposed this deep inside. She aims at the monstrosity and unleashes a massive, direct blast. The strike flies straight toward the target but does absolutely nothing due to the extreme distance. Kaido curses, warning the squad that they are running out of time and a standard their attack won't reach from here. Sora suggests moving, and Kaido agrees. Looking down at the city, they realize the fissure is already tearing open. With no time to waste, a voice over the comms tells them to stay focused on their mission, adding that the guild has been alerted. The voice then asks Sora what she plans to do, but her answer is obvious. Charging straight toward the core, she declares she's going to bring down the moon. Meanwhile, news reporters broadcast that the fissure is an S-rank threat coming from the dungeon. As medical teams treat the wounded, reporters explain that this fissure actually has a higher rank than the dungeon, and that the moon looming over the capital is the core itself. with its guardians still unsummoned. Elsewhere, Shu asks Ari about her mana allergy, and she tells him. She is fine. Ari asks if Shu worked with her brother, and he confirms it. She asks what her brother said about her, confessing she always felt like a burden to him. Shu sets the record straight, explaining that her brother did not die because of her, urging her to use those feelings as motivation to surpass him one day. He reminds her that her brother was always thinking of her, moving her to tears, pointing at the moon. Shu says they can finish their talk after they deal with that threat. As hordes of monsters flood the streets, Shu charges into fight. During the battle, he reflects on a conclusion he reached recently. He realizes there is no point in leveling up stats other than mana, while strength and speed might give quick results. They hit a low ceiling early on, he figured this out after arm wrestling a hunter with 11 points in strength. Shu flashes through the streets, dodging some creatures to save precious time. Scaling a building, he recalls putting 29 points into mana. Leaping off the rooftop, he launches himself so high it feels like flying, pausing to enjoy the sensation. Preparing his attack and trusting his strategy, he unleashes all of his mana to hurl his weapon at the moon. As Shu starts free falling, he watches his weapon soar upward, hoping it hits the target. The weapon strikes the moon while Shu crashes hard into the ground, leaving a crater. Just as he expected, the strike does absolutely nothing. Realizing his level is still too low, he knows he needs a different plan. Suddenly, massive explosion rocks the area as Aoki Sora arrives, unleashing her immense lightning powers, blasting her energy directly at the ominous moon, causing a massive impact. Sora watches the smoke clear, thinking she succeeded, but the moon is completely undamaged. She wonders if there is a second core. Before realizing that the moon itself is the guardian, the bizarre moon fires back and Sora struggles to block the overwhelming force as Shu watches. From a distance, running over, he grabs her from behind, telling her to stay focused, reminding her that countless lives are on the line. Annoyed, Sora demands he let her go, but Shu can feel she is completely out of mana. He instructs her to let her mana flow the way he guides it. Sora is shocked that he can manipulate her mana flow, but there is no time to question it. The next second, she feels herself overflowing with raw energy. She has no idea how this is possible since she was completely drained, but decides to worry. They can worry about that later. Blown away by Shu's power, she suggests they fight together. Since they are allies, she recovers her energy and unleashes her full strength. She conjures a massive energy tornado that surges directly toward the giant moon. Exhausted from the massive attack, Sora asks if they got it, but Shu replies that they failed since the core is still active and proving to be incredibly tough. He asks if she can fire another shot, but she tells him she is completely drained. She is spent. Annoyed, Shu thinks they will have to wait for backup, even though he secretly feels he could handle this entire threat all by himself. Suddenly, he steps onto Sora's weapon and asks if she can make someone fly. Shocked by the question, she listens as he warns her there is no time to explain and to just launch him. Sora accepts the challenge, calling him a weird guy and warning him she won't be responsible if things go wrong. Using her absurd strength, she launches Shu high into the air, rocketing toward the core like a missile. Shu realizes he can harvest the power he needs if he gets close enough. He instantly dumps 5 points into his mana pool and hurls his sword at the target. With everything he has left, kicking the hilt to give it a massive final boost. Shu's throw sends the weapon flying with massive force, slamming straight into the evil moon with immense pressure. The blade pierces deep into the target, triggering a devastating chain reaction that completely shatters the moon. Sora, Japan's top hunter, watches in stunned silence as the debris rains down. Right before Shu's eyes, several level-up notifications flash alongside an alert for a brand new skill. He celebrates his victory, but suddenly realizes he is free fall at terminal velocity, ultimately crashing and bouncing off a building roof. Later on, Sora reflects on the battle, deeply impressed that Shu could control his mana to destroy that beast. She wonders if he is actually another double S rank. Later, the news reports that yesterday's dungeon was a rare S rank gate. During an interview, Sora reveals she received help from a mysterious hunter who vanished, expressing her desire to find him. Ariagawa immediately deduces that the brave hunter on the news is actually Shu. At home, he asks Ari if she is feeling better, and she nods. Shu wonders why she had to bring up that broadcast. Ari then asks if he is finally going to quit scavenging and become an official, licensed hunter. Shu admits he is not sure since he still considers his level way too low. Ari promises to root for him, completely confident in his success, agreeing that high stats are what matter most. Shu decides to take the licensing exam. On the big day, the testing hall is packed. The Go Hunters channel announces they will be broadcasting insider info live from the venue, covering the exam as it unfolds. The reporter corners a cocky candidate named Yabuki-gu, who immediately begins to brag about awakening with 3 skills, pointing out his massive confidence. Yabuki loudly claims he is aiming for first place. Watching him, Shu realizes the guy is nothing special, just a basic A rank. Suddenly a voice announces the grand arrival of Sora, the double S-rank guest examiner who will be supervising the test. Introducing herself, she hopes everyone gives it their all and shows off their hard-earned skills. The crowd goes absolutely wild seeing the famous double S-rank hunter. As they scramble to get a closer look, Shu quietly takes advantage. He uses the distraction to slip away, determined to avoid doing anything too flashy. Meanwhile, Aoki Sora looks miserable under all the sudden attention. She recalls her invitation to supervise the exam and asks about the gate incident. Junosk, the master of the Bane Guild, mentions that the public thought it was just a publicity stunt to promote her. He explains that while he understands her frustration, he cannot ignore this evaluation because the association president himself is attending and he needs to scout for fresh talent for his guild. Just then the exam starts, swarming with drones and hyped by excited reporters. As everyone charges in, Shu knows his sole mission is to survive for 24 hours. Everyone else follows the standard rookie playbook, making the test easy to predict but incredibly boring. Suddenly, Amana's signature, though weak, catches Shu's attention. He thinks it might belong to someone from his past, wondering if there is another reincarnator here. Meanwhile, Wakamatsu Kenzu, the president of the Hunter Association, wants to find today's standout candidate. Aoki Sora suggests the guy with 3 active skills, but the president disagrees, piquing her curiosity. Wakamatsu brings up someone who cleared the mysterious gate in Japan. Sora tries to guess his identity and asks who he means. The association president points out that candidate number 241 has real potential. Sora quickly pulls up his profile and freezes in shock upon seeing him, thrilled to find the recently awakened youth. Wakamatsu notes that despite his age, the boy seems incredibly calm. While walking, Shu overhears some candidates talking about the exam and spots a group of bullies picking on a former schoolmate. Annoyed, Kashida Shin tells them to stop trash-talking his grandfather. The bully asks if he wants to fight, calling Shin a loser with only 1 skill. In an instant, Shu steps right in front of them. The bully gets angry and threatens him, but Shu simply says he is tired of dealing with troublesome people. He scoops Shin up like a package and bolts. The bully orders his crew to chase them, but Shu easily takes them down, confused by the whole situation. Shin asks who he is. Shu responds by asking if he recognizes names like Aslan, Ida, or Overload. Shin looks lost and says no, but Shu presses him to be honest. Shin wonders how Shu knows about his skill, making Shu realize the kid actually does know something. A bit later, Shin explains that he inherited his power from his grandfather, though it seems to be a major headache for him. Shu figures this situation might provide clues about his past life and that the kid would make a great assistant, but he hides his interest. Directly, they introduce themselves, and since Shin is a year older, he asks Shu to look out for him. Shu confirms that the one who taught him about Rachel was indeed his grandfather. When asked if he has another name, Shin gets defensive, claiming he is 100% Japanese. Shu finds no connection to his past and notes that the bully from earlier is also an awakened. Shin believes he stands no chance against him, but Shu explains that the number of skills does not define someone's rank. To prove it, Shu slices a boulder using just a single point of mana, activating no skills. Absolutely blown away, Shin begs Shu to teach him so he can finally face those bullies. He agrees, but on one condition: the kid has to sit down and actually learn. Later, the bullies track them down and mock them, saying they never expected them to crawl back. Shu tells Shin to step up, making it clear that this is his fight and he won't interfere. Shin tells him not to worry. Yabuki is a bit rattled, sensing that Shin is different now, but he still thinks he can win with his eyes closed, watching from the sidelines. Shu already knows how this will end and thinks the entire thing is a waste of time. Yabuki sneers that Shin hasn't changed since high school. Getting worked up, the bully boasts he can use his powers however he wants. Shin charges in, warning him to stop causing trouble, but Yabuki blocks the attack easily, asking if Shin is stupid for thinking he'd just stand there and take it, explaining that whenever his barrier absorbs an attack, it triggers a mana explosion. Shin remembers Shu advising him the day before to avoid mid-range combat, realizing Shu was dead on and that he only has one shot. Shin decides to coat his weapon in mana to land a clean blow. Without wasting a second, he unleashes a heavy charge attack. Yabuki's barrier begins to crack, and a split second later, it shatters to pieces. Caught completely off guard, Yabuki takes a massive hit that sends him flying. He scrambles back to his feet to save face, thinking this should be impossible, but Shin doesn't give him a chance to recover. He presses the attack, sending the bully crashing to the ground. Shin is blown away that he actually defeated Yabuki. He can barely believe he won before his opponent could even use his skills and thanks Shu, saying he couldn't have done it without him. Shu just says he did well. They agree to split the material cubes 50-50, but in the end, Shu takes a larger share. When asked about it, Shu explains he's taking a few extra cubes as payment for his advice, pointing out that if Shin thinks about it, it's actually a great deal. With the exam almost over, they plan to use the remaining time to hunt some monsters. However, Shu is the only one who manages to pull it off in the final 12 minutes. He grabs Shin's number so he can call on his support in the future and says goodbye. Shin warns him there are still some pending procedures, but Shu says he'll leave the paperwork to the others. He steps through the portal as his friend waves goodbye, officially taking the #1 spot in the Hunter exam. Shu thinks to himself that since there might be more people like Shin out there, he might even start his own guild. As soon as he steps out, he runs right into the woman from the rift. For a moment, they both stand there unsure of what to say. Shu turns away, telling her she has the wrong guy, but she replies that she hasn't even said anything yet. She mentions she didn't expect him to slip out through an emergency portal to avoid formalities, but reveals she wants to talk to him. Sometime later, we find Sora excitedly picking out gear for Shu, commenting that the clothes fit him perfectly and match his combat style. Shu notices she's only grabbing high-tier items and warns her he won't be changing his mind. Sora tells him not to worry, explaining that she has more experience and that these items could save his life in a dungeon emergency. Besides, she says the reward for his help with the rift is his despair, so she is not holding back on her spending. Shu spots a shop selling materials, carrying 2 bags. He figures their haul should be enough to craft a soul pill. Sora actually trembles when she sees the massive total on the receipt. Shu notices she is dead silent, but she quickly claims it is nothing, though the truth is she just spent a massive fortune. Finally, Sora makes a formal offer, inviting Shu to join her guild while promising him the exact same treatment she receives. Without a single second of hesitation, he rejects her. When Sora asks why, Shu explains that he hates being under anyone's control. Sora shifts her proposal, admitting she just wants to feel that incredible rush of the monoflow once more. Shu asks why she cares, considering she is already Japan's strongest hunter. She explains she has to keep getting stronger to live up to everyone's massive expectations. Shu respects her drive and accepts, curious to see what Japan's top hunter will become. A while later, they meet up at Sora's private gym. Shu notices she has switched weapons and she explains her previous blade was shattered. Sora says she will try not to use her mana, but Shu tells her to fight however she wants. Sora charges forward for a fast strike, but Shu dodges and counters. The two begin trading massive blows. Shu notes she's using far more raw strength than any normal human, and he finds the entire fight incredibly interesting. Sora keeps swinging wildly, but Shu slips past every single attack. Spotting a brief opening, he counters and lands a clean hit. However, his sword collides with a mana shield so dense that his blade cannot even pierce it. Annoyed by his skill, Sora complains that there is no way he is actually an F rank. Dodging again, Shu replies that on paper at least he really is. Realizing this fight could go on forever, Shu tosses his sword to the ground, warning her that without a weapon, he does not need to hold back, instantly doubling his mana. Shu realizes Sora will not let Him close the distance while she keeps using her powerful lightning, so he does his absolute best to dodge her attacks. Suddenly, he grabs her lightning bolt. With his bare hands catching Sora completely off guard, Shu spins through the air holding the lightning and launches an attack. This time, Sora barely manages to dodge. He decides to use a technique from his past life, even though he did not think he would resort to it here. Shu places his hand on her and unleashes his power, completely blasting her away. Before this fight took place, Sora was in a meeting discussing her abilities. Thanks her massive contributions, the evaluators believed she deserved a promotion too. S rank, she thanked them, saying she was just doing her duty. Once outside, her bodyguard approached and suggested she take a day off since she had been running consecutive missions without a break. Sora agreed she could use some rest. Just then, a group of ordinary teenagers caught her eye, making her wonder what her life would have been like if things were different. Her bodyguard asked if everything was all right, but she said it was nothing and got into the car. Back in the present, Sora is embarrassed and cannot believe she lost the fight. Shu tells her it is a completely normal reaction considering all the pressure and expectations placed on her. Sora snaps that she does not want him to lecture, but deep down she knows he is right. Shu adds that it makes sense. She is clearly struggling, never having chosen to carry such a massive burden entirely on her own. Shu supports her path but advises her to take it easy and avoid pushing herself too hard. Desperate, Sora begs him for his secret strength. Shu agrees, but on one condition: she must stand firmly by his side. Elsewhere, Shida Chin is desperately fighting off a pack of goblins inside a dungeon. He holds his own against the monsters, trading solid blows in the chaos. Thrilled with his success, the young hunter celebrates clearing out the area. He notes the area looks familiar, but Shu claims he is just imagining it. Chin absolutely loves the new shield Shu gifted him, and his skills show promise. Shu assigns him as the official sub-tank, since Shu plays the main tank role. He will be leading the charge. Impressed by Chin's rapid growth, Shu plans to rank up and found his own guild. This major move will make it easier to search for past life clues. Suddenly, a terrified scream cuts the air. Shu rushes over and finds Chin trembling and pointing toward a fallen hunter's corpse. The death was recent, as Shu can still sense a lingering trace of mana. Exploring further into the dungeon, they stumble upon even more bodies scattered around. Chin immediately suspects a high-level monster is responsible, but Shu completely disagrees. Analyzing the precise kill order, it points directly to an experienced human hunter. Shu observes that the party's primary support and healers were eliminated first, followed systematically by the tanks. This tactical strategy is beyond any simple beast. Shu is now absolutely certain the killer is human. Soon, the two stumble upon a hidden camp showing clear signs of recent activity. Looking around, they realize they have found a den of brutal killers, tracking the mana. Shu wonders if the criminals fled the moment their hideout was compromised. Chin panics, cursing their terrible luck, but Shu quickly tells him they are actually incredibly fortunate. This is the ultimate chance for Shu to test his skill. Suddenly, an armed squad appears before them, carrying a dead body. A leader steps forward, staring at Shu, and notes this unexpected meeting. He did not expect this encounter, noting he can tell Shu has awakened. Shu is shocked the stranger could tell instantly, but the man calmly answers that keeping track of things is his job, since Shu is an eyewitness. They must speak with the commander. The man then hands the investigation over to a female major, who asks if they were the first witnesses. She introduces herself as Takabana Kyoru from the Hunter Control Unit. Kyoru asks if it was just the two of them, and if they saw anything strange. Both hunters shake their heads, saying they have never seen such carnage. She warns them this is no ordinary occurrence for an E-class dungeon. Shu requests her card to keep in touch and studies the official logo. Given the sheer severity of this crime, the military was forced to intervene. Before leaving, Kyoru instructs Shu to call her if any details come to mind. With rogue hunters targeting colleagues from the shadows, Shu must act extremely fast. With that in mind, Shu orders Chin to head home and rest up, while he tracks the residual mana trail entirely alone. Soon, night blankets the city. Shu follows the glowing energy signature through the dark streets to a large hotel. He tracks the culprit directly to the exact room where the presence lingers. Shu concentrates, using his sword to shatter the door. The absolute second he steps inside, the suspect immediately jumps out the window. Shu runs to the Edgen sees the man leaping between buildings. Without a second thought, he leaps out, pursuing him across the roofs. Shu finally catches up to the guy. The man screams, asking if he's with the military. Shu calmly tells him it will be easier if he surrenders. The enemy refuses, draws his weapon, and claims that killing Shu is his ticket to freedom. The opponent lunges forward, boasting and asking if Shu can even track his insane speed. He strikes, confident he will win in a single blow, but Shu is faster. He grabs the man and starts interrogating him. The captive asks if Shu was a friend of the dead man, claiming they were just getting rid of some pests. The smug criminal then snarls at Shu to shut up and throw him in jail to find out more. Shu asks if the guy thinks he's bluffing and warns him that he has no intention of handing him over to the police. The enemy is quickly defeated, and with that, Shu levels up and gains a new skill. He checks the details on his terminal, wondering if the term heretics refers to ordinary criminals or to those who use their hunter powers for evil. Either way, he realizes this is an awesome way to level up. Right after, Shu hears Maki's phone ring. The person on the other end picks up and asks why he is not answering properly, mentions Day X and warns him not to get caught. Shu speaks up, asking who they are, which confuses the caller. He demands to know what they are planning by getting involved in these crimes and asks what Day X is. As the mysterious man starts cursing at him, Shu hangs up and crushes the criminal's phone. He pulls out Major Ku's card, thinking about the control unit, and notes that maybe he should thank the government officials for giving him this lead. That night, inside the building, the captain is furious that they captured Maki and wonders if they left any clues behind. Gushimaruji points out that since they captured Maki, whoever is behind this must be a hunter. Hearing this, the captain decides it is time for the next phase and that he'll meet with this guy himself. Meanwhile, at the Tento Special Prison, Shu mentions that it is hard to breathe in there. Major Kyoru explains it is because of the power inhibitors installed for hunters, which completely block A ranks from using their skills and cut S ranks power in half. Shu asks who they're going to see, and Kyoru replies that he actually knows the man, though Shu thinks it is pretty crazy that he would know anyone in a place like this. When they finally stand in front of the criminal, Kyoru asks if she was right about them knowing each other, and Shu confirms it. The criminal is Hijikata Yusaku, the former instructor of the Hunter Control Unit, and he recognizes both of them. Hijikata comments that hunters are getting promoted fast these days. Kyoru fires back, reminding him that he was the one who taught her how to interrogate people so they can skip the small talk. She accuses him of being behind the rising crime rate, but Hijikata asks if she really thinks he is the one running the show. Pissed off, Kyoru slams the table and declares she will not let a repeat of his assassination attempt from 8 years ago happen again. Hijikata mocks her, asking if she has always had such a strong sense of duty. Kyoru tells him to cut the crap. He then explains that Hijikata claims they live in a world of fake heroes, and his past actions were just an example. Those actions 8 years ago were meant to set an example, though he does regret the tragedies. He especially regrets those losses because Ku's father was such an incredible hunter. Hijikata points out he's already locked up, asking if she wants to ruin him. That question makes Kao lose her temper, demanding to know if he's actually stayed quiet. She warns him that she won't let him get away with whatever he is plotting. While they clash, Takebana explains the truth of what happened 8 years ago. 35 hunters banded together to stop Hijikata, and Karu's father was among them. Even with unavoidable sacrifices, she says the threat was finally put to rest. But that is all in the past now, and they need to get back to work. Staring at Sho on her screen, she notes how rapidly things have been developing. After all, he was the one who cleared that high-level dungeon just yesterday. Sometime later, inside a dangerous dungeon, Shu eyes the monster materials with interest. His partner, Shashidita Chin, wonders why he doesn't just buy them, but Shu objects. These rare items are almost impossible to find. Chin promises to handle the next beast. He steps up as the tank, landing a heavy blow that absolutely infuriates the monster. The beast lunges straight for Chin, but Shu is keeping a very close eye on things. He leaps in and delivers a swift killing blow before his partner takes any damage. With more monsters surrounding them, Shu promises to explain the materials later. Chin charges back into the fray, holding the line as the battle gets incredibly chaotic. Severed heads fly everywhere until, at last, the massive dungeon boss appears. While Chin freezes in pure terror, Cho sees this as the perfect opportunity to strike. He rushes forward, determined to harvest some incredibly rare crafting materials. The monster swings, but Chu easily evades, running right up its massive front leg. He launches into the air, driving his weapon straight through the creature's thick armor. Shredding the boss into pieces, he defeats it, leaving Chin absolutely speechless. A stunned Chin admits he cannot compete, and Shu realizes his friend wants praise. With that settled, a great deal of time passes as a strange energy sphere forms. Shu remembers using a secret fairy tribe technique to unlock his latent potential. He stayed up all night crafting, using the materials Aoki Sora bought him. It turns out his ultimate goal is to create a legendary soul pill. Unfortunately, he keeps failing, producing nothing but a pile of useless junk. Refusing to give up, Sho prays for success and attempts the craft again. This time everything goes smoothly, and Sho finally crafts the item. Thrilled with the result, he realizes he can now boost other attributes. He no longer has to rely solely on his mana or class abilities. Later, a shocking news report reveals a body was found, launching an investigation. Shu is surprised to see the crime took place right in Fukulel. He considers handing the clues to the major, but wants to test their skills first. He wants to see how far the authorities get. Elsewhere, the major walks to her car. She spots something strange on her windshield. It is a package. Inside is a broken phone and a note identifying it as Maki Yuji's device. Recording a quick voice message, she warns her team to stay highly alert. She has a fresh lead on Hijikata, while Shu quietly slips away. Meanwhile, at a tense meeting, someone questions if Hijikata is truly locked away. Tokyo, noting that the crime clearly involves the use of a special ability. Colonel Matsuo Duzan of the control unit asks the major if she understands the risk. She stands her ground, calling it a logical conclusion based on the evidence. After all, the only contact log on the phone points directly to their Tokyo hideout. But the colonel argues the strike was elsewhere, targeting a nuclear power plant. The major fires back, insisting all clues point to this being where Maki died. Daeon chimes in, noting that the Hunter Association is already deploying forces. He calls it a great opportunity, then asks if her real worry is Hijikata. Tachibana admits it, fearing the man is targeting the Prime Minister once again. She warns that even if he is not, they have likely set up an ambush. The colonel counters, pointing out how emotional she gets whenever this man is involved. He reminds her that the Prime Minister is currently out of the country. But then he drops a bombshell about the minister's upcoming travel plans. He is flying into an airport right next to that prison. Is this about revenge? The major is stunned to hear about the location of the minister's landing. She promises to take full responsibility if her instincts prove to be wrong. However, she insists they must act immediately to stop a massive tragedy. The colonel notes she never changes and orders the officers to assemble immediately. Deciding to trust her judgment this time, he demands direct reports from her. Tachibana offers her thanks. Outside the prison, a man listens to radio instructions. The strike team organizes, noting their smooth progress before receiving the attack order. Everything is going perfectly as they prepare to make their silent move. One of the operatives steps up and places his hand on the outer wall. Triggering his unique skill, he instantly shatters the massive barrier to pieces. He senses a skill dampener nearby, but his special accessory bypasses the restriction. Slipping through undetected, the group quietly advances deeper into the high-security prison. The leader signals the young Esper, who prepares to unleash his destructive power again. Blasting a gaping hole through the floor, they head down while sentries keep watch. Spotting guards ahead, the leader takes them down before they can raise the alarm. He whispers that the control room is near, urging everyone to move faster. With another quick signal, his ally uses his skill on the heavy armored door. Blowing it wide open, the leader instantly unleashes a deadly toxic cloud inside. Painful screams echo from inside the control room as the poison takes effect. Moments later, the invaders storm the room to find the staff completely dead. An intruder quickly overrides the security terminal, pressing the key to unlock a cell. The heavy seal lifts, releasing a highly dangerous criminal from his solitary confinement. He steps out wearing a dark smirk as the intruders bow in respect. They announce they have come for the instructor, making him chuckle at the reception. He looks at Joshima, admitting he was getting tired of waiting in there. Back outside, the major orders the alert perimeter expanded, and reinforcements deployed immediately. But her radio goes silent, leaving her talking to herself as a car speeds away. Gripped by anxiety over the impending disaster, she curses under her breath. Inside, prison alarms blare as the duo kicks a heavy door open too late. Her partner yells a warning as they spot the intruders down the hall. The Major instantly realizes the sheer power level of the threats standing before them. Luckily, the suppressor is still active, meaning they might actually stand a chance. The enemies should be powerless, but then a thug spots the Major. She pulls the trigger instantly, but one thug somehow activates a skill. He freezes the bullets in midair, laughing and mocking her impatient trigger finger. Stunned that his magic still works, the Major gets mocked by the criminal. He sneers, asking if she truly believed they would show up unprepared. That is when she notices a strange bracelet helping him bypass the suppressor. The former unit leader steps forward, asking if she came to celebrate his release. She barks in order for him to return to his cell, but he just smiles. He tells her she is as impatient as ever, and her presence changes nothing. In fact, he won't even bother fighting her because today is her final day. With that, he walks away, mentioning his punctual allies waiting at the airport. Refusing to let him slip away, the duo keeps firing in a desperate attempt. But the leader unleashes a toxic poison, leaving everyone coughing and gasping for air. While she struggles to aim, the enemy suddenly teleports right in front of her. He grabs her by the tie, but she narrowly breaks free at the last second. Though her tie is ripped to shreds, her partner steps in to attack. He hurls insults while firing, but the villain effortlessly freezes the bullets yet again. As he charges the Major, a sudden, unseen strike slams him out of nowhere. The attacker crashes to the floor, severely hurt, as a new figure steps up. He stands beside Tachibana. Shu calmly notes that it is just the two of them. The Major is shocked, yet relieved. Meanwhile, their enraged opponent recognizes the newcomer. Realizing this is the famous control unit member, he grins, seeing him use magic. He boasts that Shu's arm must be worth a fortune. Shu merely scoffs inside. To him, trash like this is the same in every single world they inhabit. The enemy lunges, but Shu easily evades, countering with a sharp sword strike. A mana shield blocks it, but Shu immediately spots a fatal flaw. Calling it a useless trick, Shu slices right through the enemy defense. His blade connects cleanly, sending the villain crashing down with severe injuries. With his opponent defeated, Shu gains a level up. Nearby, another thug cowers. He stammers, asking how Shu can possibly cast magic under the suppressor. Tired of answering the same question, Shu tells him it is time to pay. Infuriated, the thug suddenly recognizes his voice and puts the pieces together. This is the monster who killed Maki. Swearing bloody revenge, he charges. Shu merely smirks, daring him to try. The angry thug fires toxic magic. Shu effortlessly evades every single blast, completely unfazed by the threat. Compared to Aoki Sara, this venom is weak, though lethal to normal humans. Deciding to end this quickly, Shu allocates a few more mana points. He dashes forward while the panicked thug continues to spray his poison. Shu effortlessly parries the magic, closing the distance to strike him off guard. The swift blow lands squarely on the center of the man's chest. The impact sends him crashing down, earning Shu several more level-ups. Watching this insane display, the Major realizes it must be due to pure physical skill under the suppressor. She recalls their previous meeting. She remembers encountering him in an E-rank dungeon and asks his name. How he managed to show up right on time in such an inaccessible location. Shu tells her to ignore that for now. He mentions there is another person present. He recalls passing them on his way in, even from afar. Distance, he knew they were the strongest entity he had ever sensed. This world, grinning as everything falls into place exactly as he predicted. He asks if backup is coming. Meanwhile, the airport has descended into complete chaos. The terrorist remains completely untouched, wearing a smug, arrogant grin. On-site soldiers panic, wondering what is happening and realizing the intruder must be an S-rank hunter. They realize the plane is still grounded and they must contact the association for immediate backup. As the soldiers open fire, the man effortlessly freezes the bullets in midair and keeps walking, halting right in front of them. He sighs that they never learn and unleashes a massive fire attack. Multiple fireballs tear through the sky, slicing a plane clean in half. Terrified crowds scream and run for their lives as the fire spreads, triggering a massive explosion. Suddenly, a brave hunter lunges in for a surprise strike, but the terrorist easily counters, slamming the attacker violently into the asphalt as he burns. His victim alive, the villain calls him pathetic and asks who his former instructor was. He mockingly complains that the politician is hiding behind human shields, claiming that a crowded airport is the perfect place to test out his destructive skills. Standing before the aircraft, the man glows like a blazing sun. As he activates several powerful abilities, he unleashes his ultimate technique, declaring it a move worthy of an instructor, and blasts the plane. Meanwhile, the Major warns she will take control upon arrival. She acknowledges his incredible strength but insists that Hijikata is on an entirely different level. Shu responds that he does not need orders, but she demands obedience. She silently hopes that with their elite forces deployed so far away, he is the only one she can trust, and she is resolved to end this crisis today. Arriving at the scene, they are met with absolute devastation. The Major vows to handle Hijikata and orders her ally to treat the wounded. Shu notes that the rogue hunter's current massacre perfectly triggers his lethal executioner skill. Given the dire situation, she brushes off those trivial details for now. Still, she warns that she cannot guarantee his survival and commands him not to do anything foolish, reminding him of his limitations in a life or death struggle. Shu calmly thanks her for the warning. Meanwhile, another jet taxiing on the tarmac stops. The rogue instructor sneers that he has been waiting, addressing the minister. Once more, he reveals he held back for 8 long years, but he simply refuses to serve a hypocrite any longer. He notes he warned Takabana, yet she still showed up. The Major snaps back that he should have stayed locked up, but he chose to cross the line. He remarks on her increased power while she demands his immediate surrender. He merely laughs, dismissing the threat as total nonsense. Suddenly, a blade whistles through the air, narrowly missing the target. Shu appears, inserting himself directly between the rivals to initiate the fierce battle. The S-rank hunter retaliates with scorching flames, but Shu snatches the politician and whisks him away to safety. The villain instantly tries to hunt them down, but Takabana steps in to block him, telling her former instructor his mission has already failed. Smirking, the instructor tells her she is dead wrong. He is actually already halfway finished, and it all ends once he slaughters everyone in this room. The two clash, locking weapons in a brutal test of strength. The villain blocks her attacks with absolute ease, leaving her completely shocked by his overwhelming power. He mocks her, wondering if she can even survive, before Takabana takes a direct hit. Instantly activating her super regeneration, she charges straight back at him. The teacher mocks her, asking if she seriously thinks she can break his bones. He calls her naive while preparing a counter. She immediately feels his terrifying power washing over her as the man smiles, thoroughly enjoying every single second of this. A massive blast hits her head-on. She tries to block, but the impact blows her away. She crashes to the dirt, severely wounded. Right then, Shu arrives and demands he stop. Still on the ground, the wounded Major whispers that this opponent is just too much. Even for her strength, Shu steps up, telling her she has done more than enough. He tells her to just watch, determined to show her what it truly means to break past your limits and unleash your absolute maximum potential. The two fighters lock eyes, and the rogue instructor looks thrilled to fight him, but he quickly claims he has no obligation to fight and warns Shu to stay out of it, claiming he does not want to waste rare talent. Shu launches a sudden, lightning-fast attack, but the criminal barely dodges. Shu tells him to do whatever he wants because he will do the exact same. This catches the villain off guard, sparking a fierce, violent battle. The man hopes Shu can keep pace before unleashing a massive, blazing fire attack. Shu dodges, striking back with deadly poison, but his opponent simply laughs it off. He blocks and counters with a massive burst of flame, which Shu barely evades. The criminal admits he now understands Takabana's interest, but claims he can easily spot Shu's fatal weakness, yet Kiritani charges straight through the exploding fireballs. A massive explosion erupts, but as the thick smoke clears away, Shu is seen standing right in the center of the blast, completely untouched and unscathed. Shu notes that in a true hunter duel, mana is everything. That is their core difference. Shu mentions hearing the guy was a hunter, but frankly finds his style incredibly dull. He asks the instructor if relying strictly on brute mana is really all he has. Shu coldly tells him to head back to his prison cell if he lacks the will to fight. Kiritani knows the vast gap in their mana is obvious. Right now, he is far stronger than his opponent, which is why he decides to drag this battle out. The criminal activates a buff skill. Shu asks if he intends to attack, and the villain says he might if he feels like it. They exchange a relentless barrage of blows. Sliding backward, Shu notes his opponent is remarkably resilient and decides to create some quick distance. The villain assumes he is running away and pursues him. Shu notices his opponent is refusing to let him back off. He quickly leaps over the instructor, who mockingly asks if he wants to play tag. Shu realizes this scenario is playing out exactly like before. As this cat and mouse game continues, Shu sees the pattern repeating. Every single time he tries to pull away, the man closes the distance. He knows he only has one shot, planning to channel all his available mana into one decisive strike. While he concentrates, his opponent attacks with roaring flames. Shu decides to bait this reckless assault to land his own devastating blow. Hijikata claims his power is a holy blessing, mocking Shu for wasting such potential on nonsense. But in a flash, Shu lands a devastating blow, completely shattering his opponent's weapon. With his enemy finally defeated on the ground, Shu begins to level up. But the exhaustion is too much, and he collapses, flashing back to moments earlier. He remembers trading blows with his foe, while onlookers whisper in sheer disbelief. Unchosen humans were always destined to end up like this, mysterious voices mutter. They regret sharing their secrets and agree they must weed out the useless ones. Eyeing the young hunter, they wonder who he is, noting his weak yet refined energy. His mana is surprisingly pure. Clasping hands, they prepare to report every single detail. Suddenly, a massive bolt of lightning strikes, tearing across the entire battlefield. It seems focused by some hidden hand, yet another figure catches the current. She weaves the electric energy delicately, like fine thread. Aokiso explains the process. This is the path to true power, she notes, while Sho marvels at her speed. A violent blast erupts, making Sho pray that the debris does not crush him. Meanwhile, she laments her failure to concentrate and release all that electrical energy properly. Another failed attempt. Across the country, news reporters swarm the airport for answers. They are desperate for any details regarding the mysterious hunter who took down Hijikata. They discuss Kiritani Sho, who incredibly unlocked 5 active skills right after awakening. The media wonders if he has already surpassed Yakusora, but Shu just laughs it off. Sipping her soda, she watches the broadcast, growing deeply irritated by his humble attitude. Fueled by frustration, she grabs her weapon and heads back out to train. Determined to master her skill today, elsewhere, a mysterious shadow group convenes. Inside their hidden sanctuary, the dragon demands to know why they have assembled. He explicitly ordered them to keep a low profile. A woman steps forward to explain. The twins encountered trouble. Surprisingly, one target refined his mana and used powerful enchantments. Another member questions why the twins were sent. She calmly explains her reasoning. She deployed them to test a special artifact, and they stumbled upon the target. The eagle scoffs, calling it a major problem, and dares the man to intervene. If it bothers him so much, he should go and eliminate the threat personally. The dragon notes that after 50 years, humans are steadily improving their mana control. Another member notes that others can also refine their magical energy. Even Hijikata mastered it. They recall a human doing the same 11 years ago. That specific mortal stopped their ally, though it was likely just a bizarre coincidence. The dragon asks for confirmation, wanting to ensure everyone is on the same page. As long as they verify the facts, they are safe. He offers to investigate. With plenty of spare time, he promises to step in and handle this directly. After years of silence, he eagerly inquires about the status of the swordsman. If the twins are correct, this opponent only threatens their lowest-ranking members. Weaklings with obvious limits. Meanwhile, another broadcast about Shu airs on television. Major observes the screen, assuming the young man is crafting a public image. Shu notes that when left in the dark, society gladly fills in the blanks. Noticing her distant gaze, he gently asks if something is bothering her mind. He urges her to focus on whether their current path is truly necessary. Major insists it is vital for neutralizing a threat to the nation. When Shu questions if her own actions are truly required, she firmly nods yes. Especially for a hunter in the control unit, the Major questions if he really needs any of this, pointing out he only followed her for info on. Maki Takabana steps in, explaining they really want Shu to join the hunter control unit, promising they will give him their full support. Shu thanks him, but adds the Offer is not appealing to him, even if most people would jump at the chance. The woman asks what he means. Suddenly, things click and she remembers that Joshima's skill was poison and Tayama's was death hand, the exact same skills Shu publicly claimed to have. Shocked, she asks if he can actually steal other people's abilities. Shu remarks that she is actually pretty sharp, adding, "This is precisely why he bothered to explain it to her, since she wouldn't want to end up as bait." She wonders if such a terrifying skill is even possible. Shu thanks her for being so understanding of the situation and mentions he has another appointment, saying he looks forward to working with her again soon. Later on, Shu notices the soul pills are working because he is growing stronger without even needing to level up. Igawa wakes up full of energy. Shu asks how she is feeling. She explains she needs to run more tests, but she seems completely cured of her mana allergy. She mentions she has been recovering fast ever since the day the fissure occurred. Shu jokingly remarks that is a shame since she will not need the pills anymore, but she quickly says she is happy to take more as she swallows them. Shu thinks about how happy his friend would be seeing her thrive. He asks if she needs anything else, and she pauses to consider, saying she wants to become a hunter. Shu warns her that is way too dangerous. She argues that does not stop her. She wants to see the world her brother dreamed of with her own eyes. Suddenly, Shu detects mana radiating from her. Just then, Shu's phone rings. It is Tamura from the Hunter Association, claiming he has some fresh information to share. Shu and Igawa say goodbye, shrugging. He figures he just imagined that burst of mana and confirms over the phone that he has time to visit the association immediately. A month later, someone wonders aloud why everyone has so much free time during the new year. Chin asks Shu if the rumors about him are annoying. Shu replies that he is more annoyed at still being C-rank. Chin explains that from where he stands, Shu is growing far too fast for an average hunter. Shu tells him not to compare himself to others and only focus on his own path. Chin switches gears and asks what the association wants with them. Shu says they are about to find out. Arriving at the building, an employee is waiting for them right at the entrance. The staffer explains they figured it was best to have a familiar face welcome them inside, asking if they can head in since the president is already waiting. This leader apologizes for making them travel all this way and introduces himself as Kenzu Wakamatsu, head of the Hunter Association. The two of them formally introduce themselves in return. Kenzu then praises Chin, mentioning how proud to would be if he were still around. He adds he would love to catch up with his old friend's grandson, but with the nation's most famous rookie sitting right here, he lacks that luxury. Soon, they realize the association wants to promote Shu to a rank. However, some board members strongly object, arguing there is no one has ever climbed the ranks this fast, an achievement even Sora Aoki couldn't pull off. Yet Shu speaks up, boldly demanding to be S-rank and ready to prove his worth. The president admits he figured Shu wouldn't settle for a basic rank, but explains that becoming S-rank requires undeniable proof of strength. Kenzu then makes an intriguing offer that catches Shu's interest. The president explains that sometimes a dungeon's level can suddenly spike, which is exactly what happened to the Ichi dungeon when it jumped to SS rank. The association has concluded that the monsters inside are guardian types. Shu suspects it might be a spatial rift with a core inside. The president proposes that Shu join the investigation team to prove his skills, revealing he's had his eye on him since his hunter exam. Shu asks if the raid team is strictly made of elite guilds and if Kenzu wants him to start his own guild to join them. The president confirms this, adding that Tamura will provide all the details, wishing him luck. Shu thanks him, thrilled at the chance to enter S-rank dungeons and launch his own guild. Chin asks why they're starting a guild right now. Shu explains he's always wanted to do this, and with the association's backing, now is the perfect time. When Chin asks about the name, Shu says he wants something related to his past life, hoping it might attract some clues to his identity. He tries to recall his past, but the bad memories are much clearer than the good ones. Ultimately, he decides to register the guild under the name Overload and fills out the form. Chin points out they only have 2 members, asking if Shu has anyone in mind. Shu says they definitely need a healer. He tables that problem for later, telling Chin he doesn't need to join him on the next raid. Surprised, Chin asks why, and Shu explains it's simply too dangerous. He acknowledges his partner's talent, but says the timing isn't right, as he can't guarantee his safety in an S rank. Dungeon even so, Chin insists on going, wanting to push himself to grow stronger. Shu is pleased with his determination, realizing he used the right words to motivate him. He then sends his partner off to buy better gear, knowing he needs to take good care of his talented tank. Later, when they meet up with Sora, Ayaki, she tells him she's not the kind of person he can just call up whenever he feels like it. She stutters when Shu points out that she showed up anyway, suggesting she must have her own reasons. Sora brushes it off, saying they can talk about that later, and asks what he wants today. Shu explains he's heading into an S-rank dungeon and needs some advice from an expert. Chin asks who she is, but Shu tells him to calm down, assuring him that he actually knows her. While Chin tries to piece things together, Sora tells them to get moving. Shu covers his partner's mouth so he doesn't blurt out her name in the middle of the street. Excited, Sora offers to show them the best places to shop. A short while later, the group is looking well prepared. They start searching for weapons, but don't find anything interesting in the first shop. Sora decides to take them somewhere else. When they walk in, an old blacksmith named Izumi welcomes them and asks what they're looking for today. Sora explains she came to introduce the two guys. They formally introduce themselves while the old man just stares them down. Izumi warns them that even thanks to her recommendation, the merchant refuses to sell, but Izumi dryly remarks that he was expecting a truly legendary weapon anyway, refusing to buy garbage just because a master forged it. He points directly at a nearby blade, claiming it looks incredibly fragile, asking the old smith if this cheap garbage is his usual standard stock. Infuriated, the blacksmith snaps at his sheer audacity, proposing a dangerous bet. If the blade shatters, the kid can have whatever he wants. Izumi gladly accepts the challenge, pouring his raw mana into the metal. Sora watches in utter disbelief as the weapon instantly explodes into tiny shards. The blacksmith stands frozen, cursing under his breath in absolute shock while holding the broken hilt. Izumi asks if he still has any objections. As the old man stares in disbelief, Izumi demands that he honor their deal. When the old man demands to know who the kid is, Sora reveals he is the warrior who crushed the Rift Guardian with one strike during the outbreak. Hearing this, the stunned blacksmith mutters that he must be losing his sight to miss such a monster standing right in front of him. Izumi requests to see his rare crafting materials, wanting him to forge gear for him later. The old man gruffly tells him to shut up and follow, grumbling that a promise is a promise, and this is the price he pays for doubting his power. He pulls a wall lever, opening a hidden passage, and orders them inside. They descend into the shadows until reaching a vast vault overflowing with armaments. Chin asks if they can really take anything they want, and the blacksmith agrees, as long as it is something they can actually wield. Izumi finds the collection rather basic compared to what the ancient dwarven masters in his former world could create, though he still respects the old smith's genuine craftsmanship. Suddenly, an item catches his eye. One quick glance tells him it is a premium tier relic. The old man asks if it pleases him, and Izumi nods. The blacksmith explains that this weapon was forged from the remains of a monstrous guardian from a deadly rift 11 years ago. The zone was too deadly for any retrieval teams to recover the leftover materials, which instantly incinerate anyone nearby. Izumi asks why such a treasure is left collecting dust here. The blacksmith explains that the dungeon was simply too extreme, forcing them to cancel all recovery operations. He warns the boy that it's harmless only if he doesn't ignite it, advising Izumi to pick something else, but Izumi unleashes the flames immediately, shocking the old man. Izumi calmly explains that he wants to test the power of an SS-rank weapon. Terrified, the blacksmith screams, asking if he is crazy, yelling that this is no rookie toy. Izumi's allies look terrified as well. Fortunately, his fire magic helps him regulate the scorching heat. Feeling the blade's mana pulsing like a living heart, Izumi asks Ayaki what she wanted to learn, noting that if she practices as taught, she should recognize the strength of his stance. Recalling his previous lessons, he wants to reward her for helping his friend find good gear by demonstrating his true power. While Chin helps the old man, Izumi begins to release his aura, causing the fire to roar as he raises the weapon. Dual streams of energy surge into the flames as he explains that one must actively alter the attributes of their mana. Instantly, the living fire swirls in right in front of them. Shu declares he is in total control as the new master of the sword, completely dominating the flames. This stunning display blows everyone in the room away, especially Aoki Sora. Just a moment later, the weapon is completely tamed and blazing. The blacksmith stares in utter disbelief as the young man begins testing his new gear. With one hard swing, powerful energy flows directly into his wrist, collapsing the massive weapon into a handy bracelet. Checking his status screen, he notices he has unlocked a skill from his past life, which is perfect. Sora thanks him for everything, admitting that just going shopping with him doesn't fully repay him for his help. She warns him to stay alert in the S-Class dungeon. Shu asks where this sudden concern is coming from, and she explains that hostile hunters are currently targeting him, and the dungeon is a completely isolated place. Sora promises her guild will stay close in case he needs backup, but Shu insists he has everything entirely under control, feeling like she might have overstepped. She quickly says her goodbyes. A few days later, the major guilds. Now we see them gather at the S-Class dungeon, sensing the heavy tension because of the extreme difficulty level. Shu warns Chin to stay close. He notices that even the veteran hunters are visibly shaking, but reassures him they will be fine as long as they are prepared. Spotting a few hostile stares thrown his way, he realizes Sora was right on the money. This is definitely going to cause him some serious trouble. Inside the strategy tent, Shu introduces himself as leader of the Overlord Guild, offering a polite greeting to the room, but thus other hunters completely ignore his presence. He quietly sits down, feeling entirely invisible. A moment later, Arakawa Jim, the arrogant leader of the Titan Guild, barges in and demands to know if they are all in the third group. Shu politely introduces himself, but the man immediately scoffs, pointing out that Shu's guild consists of only 2 members. Jim mockingly asks if the opponent Shu defeated was actually Hijikata. Shu calmly replies it was just luck. The Titan leader fires back, claiming even he could not defeat Hijikata in his prime. There is simply no way a complete rookie could pull off that victory. Realizing where Jim is going with this, Shu loses his patience, telling the bully that if he doubts it, he can test it himself. Thoroughly annoyed by Jim's petty insults and refusal to recognize his strength, Shu glares right back. Infuriated, Jim snaps and calls him a bastard, but another hunter yells at them to drop it, reminding them that their main goal is finishing the raid. Trying to intimidate Shu, Jim warns him to see how long that arrogant attitude of his survives, but the Overlord leader just brushes his shoulder off, completely unfazed. Inside this deadly dungeon, we learn that the monsters here are called guardians, surrounding a central core. Outside, some hunters are waiting on high alert in case a dungeon break occurs. Yuhara Janosk, the leader of the Bengold, explains that this portal is completely different from the others. He begins assigning specific positions and duties to each raid team, wishing them all luck and hoping everyone performs their duty. Meanwhile, Chin seems incredibly anxious about entering this S-Class zone, clinging tightly to his partner, Shu. Once inside, a frantic voice screams that monsters are coming, and heavy debris flies everywhere. Jim easily obliterates the very first attacker. As the chaotic battle rages, experienced hunters shout out rapid orders, telling the archers to target the legs. He directs the mages, taking down the monsters one by one until it is time for the support squad to step in. Shu realizes he is being intentionally excluded when he catches Jim smirking. He thinks it is pretty messed up that they are trying to hold him back while their lives are on the line, but he decides to hype Chin up instead. When a massive beast appears, Shu notices the other hunters are not even trying to hide their sabotage. Jim sneers that it is finally time for their 2-man guild to do something. Shu tells Jim to shut up and watch. Choosing not to draw his flame sword, he charges at the beast alongside Chin, facing the threat head-on. Chin blocks a powerful blow from the beast and lunges forward to strike as Shu barks out combat. Watching how perfectly in sync they are, Magawa is absolutely shocked by Chin's performance. Knowing his partner is just a C rank, Shu leaps in and lands a massive blow on the monster. Reeling from the impact, the beast glares in fury as its horns start to glow. Chin quickly triggers his ability to draw the monster's focus again, stabbing it with his spear and finally bringing the opponent slamming into the dirt. Right after, Shu catches an arrow aimed at the dead beast and demands to know what that was about. Yasuda replies that it looked like they needed help, asking if there is a problem. Shu asks him if he has ever heard of basic etiquette, stating they do not need help with a monster of this level. Junos cuts Yasuda off, saying they should at the very least value their own lives. Suddenly, a massive creature looms behind Shu. He reacts instantly, slicing the monster to ribbons, which leaves the surrounding. Hunters completely stunned. Shu remarks that quality is always better than quantity, though. People who just follow the crowd will never understand that. Jim is furious at the jab, while the girl finds it interesting that he has so much confidence. Just then, Shu senses an eerie presence above and yells for everyone to hit the deck. An enormous beast climbs down a pillar and starts throwing rocks at the group, crushing several distracted hunters. One of those projectiles flies straight toward Chin, but Shu moves quickly to shield his partner. The rock shatters the ground on impact, and Shu explains those are crushing boulders. The monster continues its brutal assault on the hunters. They try their best to defend themselves, but some unlucky ones get hit. Watching the chaos, Shu wonders if this is why the last raid was cut short. He easily dodges the attacks, thinking to himself that being able to do this without even using magic is proof he is reclaiming skills from his past life. Shu tells Chin to hide for his own safety and charges the beast to bring it down before it can cause more damage. He easily defeats the beast, and someone nearby thanks him for saving them, but Shu quickly senses something is off. Looking over, he sees the buff red-haired guy holding Chin hostage. That is when Shu realizes he finished his fight way too fast. Everyone around them has been hit by a frenzy effect and is starting to turn on each other. One of the hunters orders the squad to restrain anyone affected and tend to the wounded. Meanwhile, Kiritani realizes the team had only focused on the trajectory of the monster's attack, completely missing the fact that the projectile actually mind-controlled them. He looks at the crowd, wondering if the redhead had planned this all along. But the red-haired hunter swears he never expected such a beast to show up. He plays the victim, lying that he was just caught in the projectile's blast. He spits a warning, telling Shu he will pay for making a fool of him. He demands Shu drop his weapon if he wants his friend to survive. Thanks to the mental attack, total chaos erupts and nobody can spot friend from foe. Realizing he can exploit this massive confusion, Shu asks the man a simple question. Did he really think he could get away with threatening someone like him? The redhead asks if he is wrong, and Shu says he absolutely is. For thinking he was the only one who could trigger a frenzy, suddenly Shu yells, "Get down!" Chin drops immediately. His captor smirks, but in a split second, Shu lunges forward with incredible speed, driving his blade straight through the man. The man's head flies off and he drops dead. With this victory, Shu levels up several times. Checking his new stats, he thinks the fight was way too easy. Since the fool let his guard down, Chin asks what they should do now. Shu walks back over to the corpse, striking it once more. Later on, the hunters discuss how they fell victim to a mental attack, whispering about how terrifying it is when an S-rank hunter loses his mind. Shu approaches, getting their attention, and asks what they think of the bloody scene. They reply that it looks like a monster killed him. Meanwhile, inside her private tent, Aoki Sora is working peacefully until she senses a sudden shift in the air. Shortly after, she meets with Shu, asking what he wants. Wondering if someone targeted him, Shu asks if she honestly thought he would be the victim, and she dryly notes he's the only one who pisses people off. That much. He says the problem is handled and asks what her next move is. Aoki Sora grumbles that he should have asked before taking action, but explains that Squad 1 might return, and they are no different than Squad 3. She explains the plan was always to gather the finest hunters, regardless of their guild. Shu realizes the elite hunters already know each other's skills, meaning the subjugation team is basically decided. He asks for her recommendation so he can advance to the second floor with the main group. Aoki Sora says she figured he would ask. Shu playfully teases that they are getting pretty close, but she shoots back that closeness isn't a one-way street. Shu offers to teach her how to use mana in exchange for the favor, calling it a fair trade. She points out that she does not have the final say and can only suggest him. When Shu insists that her recommendation is all that matters, she gets annoyed, telling him she doesn't need his flattery. Shu is confused by her reaction, so he decides to spend the points he earned from the last boss and buy the frenzy skill. While he is happy with the power, he still isn't quite sure how to use it. Later, at the entrance of the second floor, the hunters are receiving medical aid. Chin mentions that his squad faced the same brutal monster and ended up badly beat. Soon, the raid leader organizes the squads to move out. Chin is baffled by how Shu managed to get into Squad 1, and Shu explains he simply used his free pass. He tells Chin to contact the Bane Guild if anything goes wrong, and Chin urges him to stay safe. As they advance through the second floor, the party leader senses something is off. A hail of traps fires at them, but their tank manages to block everything with his massive shield. One of the hunters warns that the projectiles here are way stronger than the ones on the first floor, and a massive wave of them begins to rain down. The party does their absolute best to defend themselves. Shu easily deflects the projectiles with his sword, noting his allies are actually pretty well prepared. Suddenly, a massive monster horde emerges and charges at them in a fury, sparking a chaotic high-stakes battle. As they fight, the party realizes their enemy levels are way higher than on the first floor, making them wonder if the Hunter Association made a huge mistake, and since this path is a dead end, retreating is not an option. Shu thinks it is a bit early for this, but the party leader casts a buffing skill on the entire team, noticing his health and stamina skyrocket. Shu realizes just how powerful Yuhara really is. Everyone gets a huge morale boost from these buffs. Immediately after, the party's mage casts a powerful mana barrier, which does an amazing job protecting the team. They charge right back into battle, while other members tend to the wounded. Shu realizes this elite hunter party boasts perfect teamwork and flawless communication. Suddenly, a massive monster spawns right behind him, but Shu slays it with total ease. Figuring the beasts have changed their tactics, he keeps pushing forward, clearing them out one by one. Shu stops right in front of a massive monster and strikes it with his poison skill. At the same time, he blocks a strike from another enemy trying to ambush him from behind, using a counter skill to take it out. He continues pushing forward, wiping out the beasts using the two skills he recently acquired. The team is shocked, having assumed he was only there due to his connections with Aoki Sora, but Shu just keeps charging ahead, completely on his own, leaving a trail of fallen monsters. Soon, they clear a path straight to the third floor. Thrilled, the girl claims he just proved her recommendation was absolutely perfect, but Shu replies he is only paying her back for the free pass, leaving her slightly disappointed. Yuhara is actually quite pleased with her recruit, though. He observes that this second floor is smaller, suggesting this dungeon is shaped like a pyramid. Sora believes they will clear this dungeon quickly, but Yuhara warns them not to let their guard down since the path ahead could get incredibly dangerous. Suddenly, the surrounding structures begin crumbling, and their leader orders everyone to flee to the third floor. Immediately, Sora worries about Shu being left behind and shouts out to him from the staircase. He tells her he will catch up soon, then sits down to wait, muttering that his patience has officially run thin. A mysterious man steps out. Surprised he was spotted, and praises Sho's high skills. Kiritani Sho demands to know his identity and why he has been watching them since they set foot on the second floor. The stranger claps, finding this entire situation highly amusing, and mentions he noticed Sho can use mana shrouding. Shu quickly realizes this stranger can use the exact same technique with incredible skill. The man admits his own control is far from perfect, asking who taught Sho how to do that. Shu asks if he actually expects an answer. Squaring up for a fight, the man snaps back. He figured he'd have to beat it out of him, feeling the crushing pressure of his aura. Sho realizes this guy is on a whole different level than Aoki or Hijikata. The man loves Sho's reaction, calling it interesting. Shu asks what his definition of interesting is. The man calls that a good question and decides to show him, unleashing an overwhelming surge of raw power. He blasts a deadly energy beam at Sho, who barely dodges, then asks if that answers his question, mockingly adding that mana shrouding belongs exclusively to his faction and they do not tolerate outsiders using it. Shu asks if this is how he eliminates everyone else. The mysterious opponent replies that since Sho's life ends today, he can use his imagination. He adds that Sho's luck ran out the second they crossed paths. Shu is stunned to see his opponent sprout Wings of Pure Mana, a legendary skill unique to elves and fairies, making him absolutely certain this guy is connected to his past life. Now that he finally has a solid lead, Shu refuses to let him escape and draws his new flaming sword. The man sneers, saying there's no point acting tough now. Before firing a deadly barrage of magic projectiles, Shu dodges as best he can and instantly goes on the offensive. The opponent scoffs, saying a mere commoner's attacks will never touch him. He dares Shu to hit him to keep things interesting, but soon realizes Shu is patiently waiting for an opening. He fires another round of flaming projectiles, believing he has figured out his opponent's movement patterns. Shu activates his berserk skill to finish him off and charges, pouring every ounce of strength into one final strike. The blow looks primed to land, catching the mysterious creature off guard and forcing him to scramble to dodge. Shu confidently asks if those skills belong to the long-eared race and the fairies. The man snarls at Shu to wipe that smirk off his face, launching another assault that Shu barely manages to evade. Gearing up for another strike, the opponent asks if Shu can really keep dodging these attacks. Before unleashing a massive spiral of energy straight at him, Shu knows he needs a way to neutralize the blow, recalling that each of the 8 races manipulates mana in their own unique way. The fairies and long ears use siesta, while the ancient dragons rely on racial magic, yet all 8 share a core concept of mana enchantment as their magic foundation, creating powerful skill that lets them fight back against the Overlord's invasion. Believing his current mana is enough to replicate skills from his past life, Shu activates his Exceed skill. A massive burst of raw energy erupts outward, shattering the ground beneath his feet. The mysterious entity attacks with everything, but Shu strikes the attack head-on, moving fast to close the distance. The creature panics as Shu slams his fist against the magical barrier, shouting that his fatal mistake was blocking instead of dodging. The entity has no idea what he means, but his barrier begins to crack, triggering a colossal explosion that kicks up a massive cloud of dust and smoke. As it clears, Shu is still standing, though clearly injured, spitting on the ground at the sight of his wounds. His opponent lies defeated nearby. Shu tells him they can finally talk, but the beaten man furiously asks what he did. He demands to know what that glowing halo on Shu's head is, ignoring the chatter. Shu attacks him again and snaps at him to shut up. He is the one asking. After demanding a name, the captured enemy simply spits out a curse at Shu. Shu points his blade, warning that he can easily make things a lot more painful. The man finally confesses his name is Inamoto Gaku, but quickly corrects to Kadia Norans. Shu quickly realizes he has never heard that name in his past life. He demands to know why the man is doing this and how he learned mana enchantment. Getting no response, he threatens him once more, asking if he has gone deaf. Shu begins to wonder if his captive is bound by a strict vow of silence. He asks if the man recognizes names like Alan, Idia, or Overlord, but the prisoner draws a blank. Shu finds this ignorance incredibly bizarre. Since he clearly uses mana enchantment, he asks how the man knew his location. The assassin claims he was testing someone else and tracked Shu down through them. Suddenly, the man chokes up, making Shu realize it is another restriction. Shu strikes him again, calling him a total disappointment. The man asks if Shu will kill him, suggesting he join their elite group instead, promising that his power would make him highly respected. Shu scoffs, asking if he would ever join a guild of murderers. The man screams, warning Shu not to get cocky since there are monsters in their ranks far stronger than him. Shu replies that none of those monsters stand a chance, and they would flee if they knew his identity. Shivering with fear, the villain curses as Shu delivers a lethal finishing blow. With that kill, Shu surges in levels once more, unlocking a new skill. Still, he is disappointed with the reward, as he was hoping to pry some actual information from the enemy, since his skill leveled up. He wonders if skills can surpass triple S rank, the limit set by the association. He contemplates the upgrade, but remembers the skill was already at that rank when he first acquired it. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound echoes nearby. Chin panics, assuming it is a dungeon fisher. Shu tells him to relax and asks about Aoki Sora. Learning she is close by, he realizes the 3rd floor boss has finally spawned. A pack of creatures charges in and the group braces to fight back. Shu tells them he is leaving these smaller monsters to them, trusting they can manage, and heads off to find the boss. The party gets bombarded by spells, scrambling to find a way to stop them. Someone screams to retreat as another wave of enemies is already closing in. Nearby, a monster fires projectiles in every direction while Aoki Sora fights it off with her lightning, realizing she cannot get close. Due to the heavy fire, she wishes Shu were there. Right on cue, he shows up and playfully asks if she was doing fine on her own, relieved to see him. She thanks him for backup. Shu says they can catch up later, asking for a quick status report. he learns that the core is inside the beast, and even though the creature is slow and stationary, it keeps spamming attacks. When Shu asks if they just need to take it down, she explains it is not that simple. No one has managed to land a hit on it yet. Shu nods, saying he understands, and tells her the two of them can handle this. Aoki Sora asks if he has a plan. Shu simply responds that they just need to slice down everything in there. She playfully promises to clear a path for his entrance and charges at the monster. The beast roars in anger, baring its fangs and firing a storm of projectiles. Aoki Sora unleashes her lightning magic and with a single strike slices through every projectile midair, keeping the path clear. She shouts that their target is 50 meters ahead, driving her weapon deep into the earth, channeling her power to blast the giant creature. The hit lands squarely, tearing away a chunk of the monster, but the beast immediately begins regenerating. She realizes the core must be hidden somewhere else. That is when Shu steps in, offering to take over since she is completely out of mana. Charging at the beast, he unleashes a mana bombardment skill. The strike triggers a massive explosion, hitting the creature dead on, ripping right through its hide. Another explosion erupts, blasting a massive hole in the beast and putting it down for good. Later, Chin says the public is taking notice. Shu asks Chin if he was also suspicious at first, which leaves Chin flustered. Shu points out that while fame is great, his true prize is the powerful S-rank mana skill he just scored. They talk about building a base and recruiting more members since they are about to get busy, leaving Chin incredibly hyped. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a mysterious group gathers. They note that Butterfly died because of her own reckless choices, and one man asks if they are trying to blame him. Dragon steps in, asking if Lion was not the one who started this by provoking Butterfly in the first place. Annoyed, Lion defends himself, arguing he only mentioned that someone was using a mana enchantment. Dragon fires back, accusing Lion of playing dumb and trying to eliminate all of his rivals. Eagle agrees with Dragon, calling the entire incident highly. Serpent adds that Lion's impatience is what caused this disaster. Lion snaps back, reminding them that everyone agreed to the plan beforehand and now they are just trying to scapegoat him. Suddenly, a massive surge of power fills the room. A figure appears, saying he already knows what happened. The man tells Lion he did something completely unnecessary. Stammering, Lion argues that enchantment is the source of their power. The man tells him to drop it, saying he understands. He explains that despite the mana, that power is not everything to them. He adds that it is natural for others to catch up eventually, but questions the sanity of Lion's choices that killed one of their allies. Asking what he has to say, Lion replies that the opponent did not defeat him, which proves their skills are equal. The man concedes he has a point, since their opponent might be triple S class, but asks if Lion truly thinks that is a threat. Lion says no, slamming the ground. The leader warns Lion this is his last chance to clean his mess. Until everything is resolved, Lion is banned from entering Eve's door. In the past, the Overlord Queen's forces completely decimated the continent of Alan. The 8 races fought desperately, leaving behind nothing but ruins. The Death Spirits sacrificed their physical bodies in that first Great War. In the next war, the ancient dragon's perpetual motion machine malfunctioned, driving them into a wild berserk state and forcing a suicidal charge. Amidst all this absolute chaos, the death of their god, Idia, was confirmed, dragging everything into pure despair. The tragedy only worsened when a faction of the Beastmen betrayed the alliance, triggering a third war. Shu's first move was to completely eliminate the traitors. He believes this was the moment people began revering him as the sword god, making him the executor. Back in the present, Shu crafts another pill, pleased with its powerful effects. After taking it, he keeps producing more, and the moment he swallows the next one, his mana surges. He notices his title has officially changed to Guillotine. Just then his phone rings and he mutters that the call arrived sooner than expected. When he answers, Shu warns Ari not to overexert herself. Even though her mana allergy is gone, she still needs time to recover. Ari insists she feels much better than before and just went for a quick run. Shu attributes this to the pill's power. She then shows him a video on her phone and asks if it is real. The footage shows rumors about Sho and his relationship with Aoki Sora. Ari asks if they are dating, but he clarifies it's just gossip. Ari smiles clearly, thrilled by his denial. Feeling curious, she asks what his ideal type of woman Shu replies he prefers women who are not high maintenance, leaving her. Looking slightly disappointed, later, Shu meets up with the major, commenting, she must be incredibly busy to wear her uniform even on the weekend. During their conversation, she makes it clear she is always on duty to solve crimes and says today's topic is hijikata. She reveals they discovered a bracelet that neutralizes dampening materials, featuring advanced technology. Far more advanced than anything they currently possess. The major suspects the device came from abroad, and she is investigating a few suspects. First is Professor Boris, who might be conducting shady experiments. Second is Professor Chan Wen, who operates as an entrepreneur. The final suspect is Professor Steve, recluse focused solely on research. It seems one of them is connected to the bracelet. Sho asks her to personally investigate Inamoto Gakko, but she snaps back that she is not a private detective. He flatters her, saying she is better than anyone else, framing this as a way to repay her debt to him. Major eventually agrees. The following day, Chin yells in frustration, asking if everyone failed again. He wonders if Sho is being too picky with the evaluations, but Shu explains he only wants the absolute elite. Chin complains that he does not want to be in a two-person guild, pointing out he was accepted easily. Shu clarifies that is only because Chin is highly talented. With mana enchantments, they fall silent, wondering if there is anyone left to interview. That is when they find a beautiful woman waiting for them. Shu apologizes, telling her they are no longer accepting interviews, but she replies that is exactly why she chose to come. She introduces herself as Mitchell Rochelin, a hunter from the American Global Management. Shu immediately tells her he is not interested, catching her off guard. Mitchell clarifies she did not come to recruit him, but to recommend foreign hunters for his guild, which instantly gets Shu's attention. Shu, he doubts any American hunters actually want to join a newly founded guild. Mitchell explains that a hunter's income depends on rank. It has nothing to do with nationality. These days, hunters simply invest in themselves. She adds that his guild is a great bet, and recruiting foreigners is completely legal. Shu mentions they need a solid healer who can also double as an attacker. Mitchell brings up a name, Finchandra, explaining his peculiar situation. He became a hunter right after curing his mana allergy, which Shu finds interesting. He wonders why there are so many healers listed, but realizes she did her research. Impressed by her competence, he agrees to consider the candidate. He asks Mitchell to set up a meeting, but she says that won't be necessary. Shu is confused at first, but Mitchell clarifies the situation. The candidate actually came along with her. When they meet, Chin gets incredibly excited. Chin greets the newcomer warmly. Shu immediately questions the candidate. He wants to know why the kid kept hopping between guilds, since his last one seemed decent. The young man explains he was outgrowing his old team, so he searched for more potential. Shu respects his confidence, but suspects there is a hidden motive behind it. He points to his own shoulder, asking the recruit if he is in pain. Stunned, the young man asks how he knew about the injury. Shu explains. The stronger the kid gets, the worse the pain becomes. He traveled around seeking answers. He hopped from guild to guild for a cure, but normal healing magic cannot fix this. Shu then reveals that he knows exactly how to treat the condition. He tells him the situation is out of control. As a healer, he should know. He already knows what his issue is, and traveling this far proves his desperation. The recruit understands and agrees to join, but Shu quickly interrupts. Shu warns him he is not accepted yet because the interview is not over. He stands up fully energized and calls him out for a practical test. Mitchell asks Finn if he is truly okay with this, given Shu's close combat skills. The test might be too brutal, and she reminds him there's no guaranteed cure. With no proof his condition is treatable, he shouldn't ignore his health. Finn answers that he doesn't care about his current physical state. He thanks her for the introduction, adding that Shu seems like a man of his word. He believes the leader will stand by his word, noting he hasn't signed anything yet anyway. Finn asks if the leader is fine, using the weapon he has on hand. The leader replies that since the match will end quickly, it is not an issue. Moving incredibly fast, Finn says he is looking forward to it before lunging forward. He attacks, but Shu dodges. Finn wonders why his opponent dropped his weapon. A split second later, Shu grabs him by the collar and tosses him aside. Shocked, the kid realizes he has never heard of a martial arts skill like that. But Shu just shrugs, claiming he barely gave him a light push. Finn activates a super regeneration skill and charges once more. He leaps at Shu, completely shattering the ground where he lands. Shu dodges. He asks if Finn is hunting a giant raid boss with such wide swings. Since his angles are too wide, Shu counters with a precise strike. He respects how fast the kid blocks him with a mana barrier. Though it is still weak, Finn senses an opening and schemes. Trying his skill again, but in a split second, Shu lands a direct, heavy hit. Even so, Finn triggers his ability, blasting Sho at point-blank range, yet Shu only finds it, musing that the attack caused his own cells to aggressively multiply inside him. Finn warns him that refusing to surrender now will only lead to deep regret, even as Shu sees the damage expanding. Still, he instantly recognizes that this move against him is nothing more than a basic healing spell. Seconds later, he channels his own mana to completely restore his body. Finn is utterly stunned. Shu casually remarks that it was the most amusing trick he has faced so far, but ultimately it is just another basic skill. Moments later, the boy admits defeat. He finally understands that the very technique Shu used to restore himself is the key to curing his own constant agony. With that settled, Shu suggests signing the official contract. Meanwhile, Mitchell is completely appalled as she reads the terms, angrily demanding to know why the guild is not liable for any leaked intelligence, and why the deal must last for 10 whole years. Finn dismisses her worries and signs the contract. Sho warmly welcomes his newest recruit, who immediately vows to address him as master. Sho laughs and asks if he can just call him Finn, which the boy happily accepts. Chin, bursting with excitement, declares he can finally call him big sister now, but Finn bluntly reveals he is actually a guy. This piece of news utterly shatters Chin's fragile heart, as he was totally convinced Finn was a female. The pair immediately start arguing. Chin refuses to believe the truth, while Finn threatens to murder him if he dares call him a girl again. Observing their banter, Shu silently notes that his team is finally coming together. Meanwhile, over at the Japan Hunter Association, officials question if the reports are actually genuine. A seasoned elder confirms that in one single week the monstrosity will appear. That man is Oda Makito, the brilliant creator of the interruption material. He insists they must immediately summon every top guild master for an emergency meeting. Sometime later, Chin is amazed because his mana flows perfectly without any pain. He notes that whenever people grow too overconfident, they tend to stop searching for real answers to their struggles. Kiritani Sho wonders aloud if his ally is crafting something like a mono enchantment, and Chin confirms he is. Shio remembers that this ally is one of the prime suspects. Knowing a discovery like this is impossible through ordinary technology and pure science alone, so he decides to wrap up their training session and transition to the next stage. After some light sparring banter, Chin unleashes a powerful duality principle skill that gets Sho incredibly hyped. As the boy continues clashing with the beast, he suddenly takes a direct hit to his arm. Finn assumes his partner is getting sloppy, but Chin instantly casts a quick heal on his wound. Shu praises his swift support and delivers a crushing kick to the beast. Finn joins the fray, leaping forward to slice a giant monster completely in half. Shio is genuinely surprised to see how well his new teammate handles himself as a pure damage dealer. Finn just barks at him to stop slacking off. Shu silently notes that a high-level dungeon usually demands serious preparation, but once their team coordination is locked in, they will easily sweep through any threat by themselves. Finn points out they have wiped out the common mobs, but mentions that the atmosphere in here feels incredibly strange. Shu asks for clarification. Finn explains that during his time in America, a ranked dungeons never contained creatures of this caliber, at least not before that horrific beast emerged. This instantly grabs Chin's attention, prompting Finn to explain the beast's sudden arrival. It was 12 years after the rift first opened. Shu then asks exactly how long it has been since the rift appeared here. Looking worried, Chin replies that it has been 11 years. Finn warns that a silent disaster is coming, which immediately grabs the attention of our protagonist. Shu's interest is piqued. Later on, Ari welcomes Shu back home and asks about dinner, specifically what he wants to eat. He thinks it is too early to worry, but she insists. Mentions he has a visitor. Intrigued, he asks who, just as Aoki Sora shows up. She claims she visited because he broke his promise to visit her. Deeply excited, Ari tells them to catch up while she prepares a meal. Shu notes that he never realized Sora was this outgoing. She counters that his younger sister is very social too. However, Shu points out that Ari is actually not his sister by blood. This leaves Sora quite stunned. He explains she was the sister of a fellow gatherer he was close with, who unfortunately passed away in a tragic accident. Sora finds this whole backstory quite surprising, admitting she never knew he started as a humble gatherer. She also never realized he was such a caring guy. She adds that is precisely why she visited today. Shu suddenly notices she has perfected the new technique. Sora admits she finally figured out the trick, though she feels it is strange she could not do it earlier. Shu applauds, praising her progress and telling her she is on a completely different tier now. Blushing deeply, Sora asks him to keep his word. He reassures her that practicing the steps in that manual will take her even higher, though he secretly knows those are actually just the absolute bare basics of mana enchantment. Sora figures real-world combat is a better teacher and asks to spar with him. Shu agrees, pointing out he now has access to a private training room. Sora asks if it is truly all right for them to train there, but he shrugs it off casually, wondering what could possibly go wrong. Suddenly, an urgent television broadcast announces that a massive monster is about to materialize. Shu is stunned, realizing this is happening way too soon. For comfort, Sora rushes off to her guild, thanking him for the tea before leaving, and suggesting they catch up later. Meanwhile, Shu calls Chin, who explains that he is already heading to headquarters after receiving the urgent red alerts on his phone. Shu stresses that time is short, opting to head directly to the hot zone instead. He tells Chin to stand by. The guildmaster orders Shu to gear up and wait for Finn's arrival. Ari warns him to stay safe as he departs for the target area. On the way, they discuss how the incoming monster is formally classified as Maxvi. Chin questions the point of naming these beasts, but Finn explains that it is like naming a massive storm, admitting the title alone sends shivers down his spine. Shu mentions hearing that Finn was fully cured of his mana allergy once the gateway opened. Finn confirms the rumor, prompting Shu to ask how long it took to transition into a licensed hunter. Finn reveals the entire adaptation phase took around 1 month. This makes Shu think of Ari, who recovered and immediately declared her dream to become an elite hunter as well. Finn notes he once heard of another similar case elsewhere. Shu asks if he feels anxious, wondering if it stems from him possessing far more energy than ordinary people. Finn agrees, sharing details about the incredible reward he unlocked upon awakening, a double S-rank skill called Mana Reactor Core that triples his total reservoir. Shu asks if anyone tried to stop him from leaving his previous guild. In response, Finn silently points toward an armed military helicopter hovering the sky, slams on the accelerator and urges they speed up. Upon arriving, the military has already deployed, and Chin is shocked by the massive scale of it. Still, Shu says it makes sense, since this is the first actual monstrosity to appear. Sho then mentions he needs to head over to the association, noticing something strange. The usual cold shoulder he saw during the previous raid is completely missing here. There is no gatekeeping today. Given the gravity of this situation, the association leader thanks everyone for showing up and begins his briefing. He tasks the Overload Guild to lead the charge, explaining that the decision is based on Shu's incredible performance in the previous raid and the brand new S-rank hunter. The president asks if Sho has any objections to this, since everyone else already agreed. Shu does not really want the spotlight, but he knows complaining is not going to change anything. He simply promises to do his best and meet their expectations. Later, the others ask Sho if he truly believes the monster will show up. He warns them to stay on high alert, but Finn mentions some guilds remain skeptical. Shu points out that he heard these beasts appear quite often in America, asking if there is a reliable way to predict when they will strike. But his teammate says there is not. Chin questions why they were all gathered here without any real proof. Finn argues that the president would not order a massive mobilization unless he was absolutely certain of the danger, which gets Shu thinking. He realizes a simple hunch would not mobilize this many high-rank hunters. The association must have solid, undeniable proof. Just then, alarms blare as they all stare down at their phones. Someone screams that the beast has landed, but they quickly realize it is hitting a completely different area. Shu realizes it is a trap, and Chin shouts that they must move immediately. Meanwhile, across town, absolute panic erupts as civilians flee from a towering beast. The Titan tears through the streets, crushing everything in its path and tossing cars like toys while military gunships try to hunt it down. That is when Aoki Sora steps up to face the threat, estimating the monster is at least 50 meters tall. Its sheer scale is completely warping her perception of distance. The beast barrels forward, unstoppable. Sora instantly notices that it is absorbing all surrounding mana from every single source. It is an impossible anomaly she has never witnessed before. A voice in her head tells her to stay calm. And she agrees. Knowing this threat is off the charts, Sora unleashes her absolute strongest attack, channeling raw lightning along with multiple combat buffs. Then she bolts straight toward the massive monster to deliver one devastating strike, tearing up the earth behind her as Sora connects directly. But as the dust settles, she realizes that despite her clean blow, it did absolutely zero damage. Enraged, the giant beast immediately turns and lunges at her, leaving Sora to wonder if it somehow absorbed her mana or just reflected it, utterly baffled by her complete lack of impact. The monster swings at Sora, destroying the entire block, but she narrowly evades. Seeing the threat, the guild leader orders everyone to open fire with absolutely everything, and the hunters immediately jump into action, unleashing a devastating barrage of spells directly at the beast, only to realize their efforts. Every attack is somehow getting completely neutralized. The monster keeps tearing up the streets, hammering the group as they struggle to hold the line. Then, suddenly, the bizarre beast lets out a deafening roar, tearing massive rocks from the earth. Everyone begins floating upward, realizing gravity itself has just flipped. Sora leaps across the drifting boulders to close the gap on the beast, but spots something that catches her completely off guard. In the next instant, everything crashes down. She realizes the beast did this on purpose to make them crash, knowing it can control gravity and negate mana. Sora wonders how any creature could possibly wield both powers. Knowing she must act before anyone else gets hurt, she steels herself. As the monster charges, Sora clashes with the creature head-on. Their colliding blows shatter the surrounding streets, and even though she is taking heavy damage, she must endure until help arrives. Suddenly, the monster begins to shift, catching Sora off guard. It unleashes a completely new attack, hitting her dead on and sending her flying. The guild leader yells in panic, but Sora nods to show she is fine, quickly resetting her stance to buy precious time. But then she spots a terrible shift and realizes the beast is targeting civilians. Sora screams to her master, who shouts he is already on it. He activates a skill while she rushes to cut it off. The beast charges up a blast in its mouth, determined to stop it. Sora lunges forward, her crackling lightning clashing directly against the enemy's fiery blast. She struggles to focus her strength, but the beast overwhelms her with pure power. The impact sends her flying, demolishing everything in her path. Sora struggles to stand, battered and bleeding. She fears this is the end, until a sudden, massive bolt of lightning strikes the beast. A spinning sword blocks its lethal strike. Sora gasps in relief, recognizing Sho's weapon as Kiritani walks up, praising her efforts. She tries to apologize, but he tells her they can talk later. He quickly orders Chin to take Sora to Finn, promising to handle the monster himself before ordering full evacuation. Chin nods, telling him to stay safe, while Shu quietly mutters that he never expected to fight this enemy here. Brandishing his blade, he identifies the monster as an overload, certain it invaded from Overload, acting as a low-class scout for intelligence. Beyond his duty to protect mankind, a burning fury rises. He cannot stand monsters that appear out of nowhere to ruin lives. Vowing to wipe this beast off the face of the earth, he charges. The bystanders are stunned by Shu's speed as he enters the fray, effortlessly dodging the beast's wild swings. Mid-fight, he realizes its negation technique is incredibly simple. To counter the monster's interference circle, all he needs is a negation of 2 circles or higher. He knows it only has 1 circle as a low-level grunt, though the spectators can only obsess over the massive gap in their mana pools. Shu lands strike after strike on the beast, effortlessly dodging every counterattack. He knows an overlord requires patience. He knows not to rush, acting just like in his past life. With that legendary mindset, he keeps up a steady stream of rapid, successful attacks, easily dodging the monster's wild swings. The beast activates its unique skill, forcing Shu to float into the air. Even suspended in midair, he prepares to strike back, unlocking a brand new skill. Shu dives straight at his opponent using Exceed, cutting through the beast's defense and slicing off an arm. without giving the creature second to breathe. Shu strikes again, finally bringing the giant beast down. The guildmaster watches in absolute shock, stunned to see someone slaying such a massive monster entirely on his own. Nearby, the fight rages on with Shu completely dominating. The guildmaster wonders if this power was what defeated Aoki Sora, thinking the collateral damage makes no sense. For the whole area to be ruined, suddenly the monster fires a devastating energy beam. Shu triggers Berserk just in time, blocking and deflecting the blast. While defending, Shu prepares to close the gap immediately. The attack ends. He knows fighting an overlord requires getting up close. Quickly, a tactic proven by the 8 races, using a past life skill. He vanishes instantly and rushes the enemy at incredible speed. Shu closes in rapidly, preparing to land a devastating strike as he falls from the sky like a bolt of lightning. His blade tears through the monster once more, spotting an opening. The guildmaster yells that their spells can finally land, ordering everyone to fire at will as a barrage of magic blasts the creature. Shu moves like lightning again, channeling all his mana into one final strike. Declaring that it is over, he unleashes a massive that finishes the monster for good, sending its head crashing down into the rubble. Following this victory, Shu levels up multiple times, gaining new stat points. The other hunters watch in disbelief, wondering if he is really a rookie. As the crowd cheers for him, Shu wonders if he can finally wield all his past life skills. He decides to check his status screen later, since cleaning up this massive mess is the immediate priority. Sometime later, 2 people discuss the recent news, mentioning that Aoki Sora was severely hurt. Shu notes that Ari was incredibly shocked, admitting he never expected things to get this bad. Sora takes the chance to thank him, explaining she has no idea what would have happened without his timely arrival. He accepts her gratitude, but urges her to take better care of herself, reminding her that so many people await her return. Sora thanks him again, deeply touched, and asks what he plans to do next. Shu replies that he is heading to a ceremony. Meanwhile, Japan's second double S-rank hunter appears on television, commenting that Shu is putting on quite a show, and this could mark the birth of the world's first double S-rank. Chin notices his friend is gaining massive fame, but Shu cuts him off, asking what he is reading. Chin wonders if they were going to partner up, but Shu dismisses the idea. Told to stop worrying, Shu checks his status screen and quickly notices he has unlocked the spirit attribute, revealing the rank of a person's soul. This unique stat allows him to shatter his limits and eventually surpass a god to their true potential, but he quickly realizes standard stat points won't work to upgrade them. Luckily, he already has a pretty good theory in mind. A bit later, at memorial service, grieving crowds gather to pay their final respects to the mourning families. Shu announces that to help lift some of their heavy burden, his guild is donating half of its total profits directly to them, just like in his past life. The only way to boost his spirit stat is by doing actual good deeds for the world, and in a money-driven society, cash is the perfect tool to get that done. Watching a little girl cry, Shu realizes some sights are just as heartbreaking as they were in his past life, and he will never get used to. Finn walks over, praising his master before handing over the secret files he requested. When Finn asks if the monster investigation is not already closed, Shu explains he needs to double-check some details personally because there is a specific person he must pay a visit to immediately. Meanwhile, an old man is frantically packing his bags. He instantly freezes in sheer terror when he spots Shu, who casually asks why he is packing so much and if he is leaving for good. Shu admits that no matter how he slices it, the facts just do not line up. How could the man who built a machine to predict monster spawns, a feat even top American scientists failed at, get the location completely wrong? The researcher desperately argues that tracking mana flow is never precise. Shu fires back, pointing out that releasing this critical data only a week early gave the Hunter Guilds zero time to prepare. The old man asks if he is suggesting a conspiracy. Shu reveals he knows all about his secret research on interference materials, adding that making a jammer bracelet to block tracking signals is far too convenient. The terrified scientist slams down a remote to activate a hidden trap. Shu instantly senses the jamming field flooding the room, while the old man tries to scramble for the door. Shu coldly warns him that he is being severely underestimated. Demanding to know who he thinks took down the giant beast, he hurls his blade pinning the runner to the wall with pinpoint accuracy. He demands the mastermind's name, warning that the next throw will take his head off. The scientist begs for mercy, swearing he was forced to help. Shu doesn't buy. It's striking him again for a straight answer. Shaking, the man tries to talk, but no sound comes out. Shu realizes they placed a magical gag order on his soul. The researcher wheezes that Shu will be branded murderer if he dies, but Shu reminds him who crossed the line first and demands the mastermind's identity. Cornered and desperate, the old scientist blurts out that he must go after the twins. Shu thanks him for the intel, but reminds him 30,000 people died, and he still must pay for his crimes. At this rate, Shu knows he must grow strong enough so no enemy can ever threaten him again. Later, Shu checks his phone and notices all coverage of that corrupt teacher has been scrubbed. On the right side, his massive charity donation is generating incredible press. He figures it as a small price to pay for good PR, even if such chances are rare. He vows that if this world falls like his previous one, he will never let the ruling tyrants win. Suddenly, Shu finds he suddenly wakes up in a strange place, hearing a voice call him Arden. He wonders if this is Eve. Then, a woman appears and asks what he thinks of the area. She points out it looks identical to the Alan continent, explaining that the elves created this pocket dimension, introducing herself as Kushu Shu, one of the legendary 8 heroes of the other world. Shu is completely stunned by her presence. Soon, others gather, excited that they can battle the queen here. Without any limits, this realization makes Shu instantly understand he is dreaming. In the next second, the dream shifts, showing his utter defeat. Kushu lies dying in his arms, barely holding onto life. She whispers an apology, saying she should have known her place and settled for a quiet life, asking if he agrees. Shu tells her she is right and that the battlefield is no place for someone who belongs in a peaceful forest. Suddenly, his memory flashes to a different scene where a voice is screaming at Rainville to stop, warning him that he is desecrating a holy relic of the gods. Redinville snaps back, telling them to shut up because the gods are not on their side and they desperately need a weapon to slay the queen. Shio remembers how this man poured his whole life into forging a weapon to kill the queen, though it never reached his hands. The dwarven blacksmith risked everything to make the legendary gear, which posed a genuine threat to her power. Because of that, the dwarven workshops were mercilessly targeted, and his ultimate weapon was lost. Forever, consumed by despair and left hopeless, the legendary blacksmith vanished, ultimately taking his own life on a freezing, isolated mountain. Then, another warrior speaks up, declaring, "This battle will never end unless they defeat the Overlord Queen." Kruger, another of the legendary 8 heroes, vows to find her secret base, yet in the next instant, Kruger is brutally struck down, crashing to the ground with fatal wounds. He looks at Arden, whispering that deep within the abyss of the starry sea lies a boundless ocean, and the queen waits on the disc-shaped continent. Drawing his final breath, he desperately begs Arden to slay the queen and end the endless war. Sho jolts awake, realizing his brutal clash with those monsters triggered these vivid dreams of his past life. He reflects on how he never truly understood Kruger's final words back when he was Arden. But now, as Kiritani, it finally clicks. He realizes Kruger was describing outer space, meaning those terrifying creatures are actually alien monsters. Knowing this truth, he decides he must focus on intense training and preparation. Later, at the Hunter shop, the old blacksmith is completely shocked to see Sho walk in. He mentions hearing rumors that Shu defeated the massive beast and harvested its rare parts, but admits he lacks the funds to buy high-grade materials like those Shu reminds him of. They're packed to collaborate, offering the blacksmith half of the rare materials, which catches the old man completely off guard and asks him to use the rest to craft the ultimate gear for him and his entire guild. The old man admits he did promise, but jokingly asks if Shu feels right taking advantage of a poor old man. Shu reasons that since that monster appeared here, more overlords will inevitably show up next. He remembers how they failed in his past life before they could even formulate a proper plan, but this time he is determined to ensure things end differently. Suddenly, a frantic voice screams Shu's name, insisting that he needs to see something right away. The woman shows off her. She panics, urgently telling him he needs to see this. The woman reveals her power, channeling her mana right in front of him, watching the energy surge. Shu realizes she has awakened, recalling the story Finn once told him. About his own awakening, he is genuinely stunned by the massive amount of mana. She is releasing. Ari is thrilled that she has finally awakened and can become a hunter. Shu suggests she check her status screen to be sure. She strikes a pose and commands the screen to open, but nothing happens. Embarrassed, Ari slumps, thinking she got a bit ahead of herself. Shu notices her mana pattern is different from Finn's and tries to guide her. Ari concentrates for a moment, and suddenly her mana explodes outward. Shu is blown away by her raw talent. Staring in disbelief, he sees a phantom image of Kushu behind Ari. Sensing his intense gaze, she tenses up and asks if she is in danger, but Shu assures her she is unique, asking her to let him know if anything else happens. He begins to wonder if she was in his past life. Could that mean his future teammates might be the other 9 heroes? Right then, Shu's phone rings. It seems someone has information on Namoto Gaku, so he heads back to the monument he visited before. When he arrives, the major asks why he is making a civil servant work on weekends and points out his ridiculous disguise. Shu explains he is famous now and asks what she found. She tells him she uncovered a record exactly where she expected. Though she is not sure if it is the person he wants, she points to the monument, explaining that every hunter who fought in the very first rift has their name engraved on it. Shu searches the monument and finds the name Kishida Mamoru, the man who taught Chin the dragon arts, making him Chin's grandfather. The major adds that he went missing 12 years ago, presumed dead. She confirms he was a big deal back then, reaching a top rank at just 19 with a signature ability to blast mana like a cannon. Shu smiles to himself, realizing that just as he suspected, the man was indeed the butterfly. The major is shocked, asking if Shu was the one who killed him. Shu explains that he was attacked and did not really get the guy's motives. She argues that he should not have killed him, but Shu fires back, asking what would happen if a hunter presumed dead suddenly showed up again. He reminds her of their deal. He handles the people the law cannot touch. Tadabana is caught off guard, saying that was not exactly what they agreed on. Shu tells her they can wrap things up here, saying he is going to look around. He spots a photo of a massive explosion, the one that destroyed the core and closed the rift. Early, when Shu asks who did it, she replies that according to the records, it was Kishida Mamoru. Shu is stunned as he reads the inscribed quote, "We are the light that will pave the way and clear the shadows from the road." The major mentions he used to say that a lot and asks Shu if he's heard it before. Wearing a satisfied smirk, he says he has. Excited, Shu recognizes the phrase the 8 heroes loved so much, realizing it was actually the dragon tongue, the ancient dragon race's secret enchantment method. He figures out that the explosion was caused by the Berserker perpetual motion machine. In his mind, he calls out to his master, realizing he was the first to come to this world. Meanwhile, back at the Overload Guild, there is a loud crash. An explosion blasts Chin right off his feet, leaving him struggling to stand. He barely recovers before Shu warns him another blast is coming, triggering a desperate protest from Chin. He demands to know why, repeating that he only learned the racial technique as a kid and remembers nothing else. Shu explains that the racial technique is a mana enchantment designed to reinforce the body. Since Chin learned it as a kid, his body will remember it. This is where his real training begins. Bathed in bruises, Chin wonders if their previous sessions weren't real. He is deeply terrified of why they are suddenly stepping things up. Just then, Finn strolls over and asks if he can join the session. Shu welcomes him, happily leaving the healing duties to him. Hearing this, Chin panics, realizing Shu expects him to endure a beating without getting healed right away. He questions if a healer is even supposed to act like that, while Shu notes they still have a long way to go. A bystander remarks that Shu is pretty strict. It is Captain Temura, who mentions he has an urgent matter to discuss. He asks for a moment of Shu's time while the training continues in the background. Shu suggests they talk somewhere else when Temura brings up a topic that surprises Shu. It involves an international Manitech conference, the largest event of its kind in the world, and Temura wants Shu there. Since this global event is all about mana research, Shu asks if Professor Steve will be attending. Temura confirms that Steve always attends as a founder, adding that Professors Boris and Chen will also be there. Show up, realizing these are the 3 prime suspects behind the mana inhibitor. Shu accepts the invitation and confirms his attendance. the captain thanks him and offers to arrange a private meeting with the professors, but Shu declines, figuring that whoever ordered the professors to leak fake info and created the inhibitor must be one of those three. Tamura thanks him once more, noting that Professor Steve now has a top-tier bodyguard. When Shu asks about them, the captain confirms it is another double S-rank hunter. Meanwhile, in the air, a woman is nagging Steve, calling him noisy and saying he sounds like a dog. Steve reminds her that she volunteered for the bodyguard gig in the first place. Karina Wade, the world's second strongest hunter in a triple S class, snaps back that if he's going to keep whining, he should just go to sleep. The researcher notes she's in a terrible mood, and Karina tells him to be grateful he is even alive. After taking advantage of her, highly embarrassed, Steve explains he only touched her because he thought she was falling. Karina tells him he is hopeless, underestimates hunters way too much, and threatens to blast a hole in his head if he keeps making excuses. Petrified, the researcher promises to reflect on his actions, which calms her down slightly. Steve then grumbles that she will have a hard time ever landing a boyfriend with that attitude. Karina snaps at the old man too. Shut up, then asks what that thing on the hunter's head is. Surprised, Steve says it resembles an angel's halo and guesses it might be a new skill, asking if she knows anything about it. Karina shrugs and says she only asked because he is a professor, leaving him quite offended by her attitude. She stares off, lost in thought. Soon, the tech expo kicks off. Shu arrives and is immediately treated like a total celebrity, getting completely swarmed with invitations. The captain calls out to Shu, pulling him away from the stifling crowd. Shu thanks him for the rescue, shocked by all the sudden attention. He then notices the real stars of the conference have just made their entrance. It is Professor Chen and Professor Boris. Boris does not look like a tycoon. Yet, despite his unassuming look, something about the corporate leader feels deeply off. As for Chen, Shu catches a subtle, chilling whiff of rotting flesh. Deciding to keep watch on the man, he is interrupted by a sudden commotion. The captain points out that the famous Professor Steve has finally arrived. Knowing his guest's curiosity, the captain asks if he wants to say hello. But Shu is completely transfixed by the mysterious woman beside the professor. Tamura reveals she is Karina Wade, the American triple S-rank hunter. She has conquered 41 dungeons and ranks second globally, leaving Shu stunned. Even with her aura masked, he senses a terrifying pool of mana within. Her sheer presence echoes the pressure of Qin, a truly formidable force. He knows he cannot let his guard down around her. Soon, Professor Chen takes the stage, discussing mana-infused weapon tech. Meanwhile, the captain notices Shu staring at Karina and asks if they have met. After a tense moment of eye contact, the captain clarifies his role. He is only monitoring her closely to fulfill his security detail. Though still green, he strives to match the skill of his sister nearby. Hearing this, Shu is shocked to discover the captain is Sora's brother. He felt a familiar energy earlier, but had no clue she had family. The captain asks him to watch over her, and Shu promises his support. Tamura looks intrigued by their new partnership, raising an eyebrow. When Shu asks about it, Tamura formally entrusts Sora to his care. Shu grows slightly uneasy, unsure of what exactly entrusting her to him truly means. His thoughts break when he spots two children running around in heavy gear. They are twins, reminding him of the professor's cryptic clue. He was told finding them would explain everything. Then it hits him. He is the only one who can see them. He immediately bolts, drawing stairs. Shu pursues the swift duo through the corridors, but cannot close the distance. Pushing through a heavy stairwell door, he finds only empty air. Suddenly, Karina appears behind him, teasing that he looks like he saw a ghost. She admits she followed him because he dashed off like he saw a monster. Shu plays it cool, claiming his eyes have just been playing tricks on him. Karina offers her assistance, revealing she did not travel here just for security. She was not hired to just babysit professors. Shu mentions the strange twins. He tells her not to worry, promising he will track them down. But Karina has her own suspicions and warns of a hostile threat incoming. She explains they are led by a tyrant who seized power using his awakened abilities. His name is Aziz al-Malik, a monster widely known as the Corpse Eater. He has the dark power to reanimate and control his fallen victims. Shu realizes this faction mobilized the moment they started hunting for the relic. It is no coincidence. He deduces the timeline of this attack matches perfectly. The terrorists are synced up with the event, pointing to an inside job. To him, those twins are the key clue. He remembers Professor Chen was giving his speech when the kids showed up, ruling him out, Professor Steve's schedule shifted slightly during his presentation, and Karina was standing right next. To him, when the twins appeared, piece by piece, Shu puts it together and realizes only one suspect remains. Suddenly, Professor Boris walks up, asking if everything is all right, noting how Shu bolted earlier and wondering if he discovered anything interesting. Instantly, Shu detects a sickening stench of death on Boris and realizes this man hates humanity. Out of nowhere, a massive blast shakes the entire building. Shu worries he was too slow to react. The captain, luckily still breathing, asks if he is all right. Terrified, he asks if they are trapped in a dungeon. Sho says it looks that way, but detects it is just an artificial dungeon. Suddenly, something catches Sho's eye. He shields the captain, who demands to know what that noise is. Suddenly, several monsters emerge, ready to strike, but Sho tells him they can discuss that after he sweeps up. The beasts charge the crowd, sending everyone into a wild panic. The captain struggles to believe his eyes, wondering if these creatures are actually undead. Guessing this might be the power that girl warned them about, Shu recognizes it as pure necromancy. Realizing it must be that man's skill, he tells the captain he will deal with the undead while the captain leads everyone to safety. Suddenly, a monster lunges right at Sho, but he effortlessly tears it apart with his death hand skill to incinerate a whole group at once. He draws his flame weapon and unleashes a blistering fire attack, burning the monsters to ash. The crowd is stunned to witness an SSS rank fighter in action. Tamura realizes Sho is incredibly strong, operating on an entirely different level, even compared to Aoki Sora or other SSS rankers. Suddenly, Sho levels up, shocked that he leveled up just from this fight, especially since he had not hunted anything since that monstrosity. Then it hits him. He receives massive experience points for slaying heretics. He wonders if the system views all these undead creatures as heretics, realizing he just struck gold. As the rescued survivors cheer relief, Shu apologizes, explaining he must keep moving. He reassures them Captain Tamura will protect them, offering a quick thank you that catches the officer completely off guard. Shu promises to blast a path through the undead, telling the captain to lead the group out. When another horde appears, Shu dumps his new stat, points straight into mana, just like always, and continues blasting the creatures with searing fire projectiles. The monsters crumble to dust before him, and Shu just keeps leveling up, pouring even more points into mana. Suddenly, a sharp scream catches Shu by surprise. A desperate voice cries out for help. Completely cornered by the undead horde, Shu quickly obliterates the monsters and finds Professor Chen shaking in terror. The man praises God for his rescue, begging Shu to escort him out, promising a massive fortune in return. Shu tells him he has not found the exit yet and will simply keep destroying every undead in his way, once again asking the captain to watch over the professor. The professor insists on clinging to the SSS rank Hunter, promising he will not be a burden. Shu relents but warns him that the path ahead is only going to become far more dangerous. Tamura steps forward, saying she understands the situation and promises to keep everyone safe. With that settled, our hero heads off to find whoever is truly behind the incident. Meanwhile, in another area, Steve wonders if the blast created a dungeon. Karina tells him to relax, reminding the professor who he's with. He suddenly remembers he is beside a triple S rank hunter, who tells him to quiet down. The professor then notes that their surroundings do not look like any ordinary dungeon, surprising her. Steve reminds her that he is indeed scholar, pointing toward a nearby rock and revealing it is just a hologram. She notes the cheap quality, but confirms it is definitely a product from Eve. When Steve asks if she knows of it, she nods and tells him to back away. Suddenly, a terrified Steve warns her that enemy forces are closing in. As the beasts charge, things escalate, and in the next instant, Karina dons her combat gear, wondering if it is time to warm up. A beast leaps forward, only to be instantly torn to pieces. The battle rages as she decimates the horde, looking like she is having the time of her life. Observing this, Steve thinks to himself that her alias Trigger Happy really fits her style. She clearly prefers using these classic firearms, ignoring the far more advanced weapons currently on the market. The deafening gunfire only attracts more monsters directly to their position, but she calmly faces the massive crowd, when a beast leaps at her, she eliminates them one by one with lethal precision, thriving on the rush. She charges straight ahead, unleashing a hail of bullets in every single direction. And tearing the targets apart, she wonders if they are trying to exhaust her with endless waves. To finish this quickly, she pulls out a heavy machine gun, mowing down the entire army, standing atop the pile of bodies. She mocks their weakness, asking if that is all. Right on cue, the massive boss arrives. It roars and lunges, only making her feel more thrilled, but suddenly she runs completely out of ammo, forced to search her pockets for spare rounds while the beast attacks her with savage fury, unable to breach her defense barrier as she keeps rummaging. Steve can only marvel at how absurd her raw power truly is. The frustrated beast keeps striking her shield in vain until she finally locates her bullets and prepares to rejoin the battle, warning the giant beast that its time is up before activating a devastating ultimate. The shots obliterate everything in sight. She giggles, finding it thrilling to blast such massive targets. Taunting her giant opponent, she dares him to show some backbone and aim for the professor. However, the foe retaliates, claiming she got too careless, ordering her to disarm herself, only to be instantly shut down. Karina scoffs, noting that rookies often forget that tier differences run deep. A terrified Steve trembles because those stray rounds flew dangerously close to his head, but she demands some appreciation instead. She then notices the beaten opponent is covered in tattoos, marking him as a direct disciple of Egypt. She figures their real target was a mass kidnapping, and the professor admits he suspected something bad from the start, begging her to rescue the others, even though she points out her exclusive assignment is to. She tries to protect him, but he insists the area is safe. She expected that exact response. She tells the professor to hide, promising she will be right back. Nearby, Shu spots a massive pillar of light. Suddenly, a voice calls his name. A man in a lion mask appears, claiming he has been waiting for this moment. Shu points out that while the masked man did not change his clothes, he could have at least tried to disguise his voice. He tells him to drop the act and remove the mask, calling him out directly as Professor Boris, but Boris claims the mask is a major part of his identity. Shu fires back, calling it a fancy word for cowardice, and notes that now he knows to call their little group a masquerade. Boris claims Shu is getting cocky just for killing Saidia, failing to understand the concept of cycles. Shu simply asks if the professor is claiming to be incredibly powerful. The masked man replies that if he doubted his victory, he would not be here, demanding they stop talking. Shu realizes his opponent has at least two cycles. Since a power gap exists between members, they must not share power. Boris boasts that because of his organization, anomalies like Shu must be erased. But Shu replies that he could not care less about their plans. This response infuriates Boris, who vows to make him care as the battle begins. Shu easily dodges an incoming strike and activates his Exceed skill. Boris warns him not to get arrogant just because he dodged. Still, Shu finds it strange that the man has not mentioned his halo at all. Realizing he is facing a low-level lackey, Shu expects a quick victory. He summons his flaming sword, charging forward to land a massive, heavy blow. But Boris catches the blade with his bare hand, shocking his opponent. Boris counters with overwhelming force, sending Shu flying back through the air. Quickly recovering, Shu hurls fireballs, but Boris charges a blast to deflect them. Shu realizes this guy possesses insane strength, feeling like he is fighting multiple foes. Suddenly, Boris promises to demonstrate exactly why Shu cannot win this battle. He activates his paranormal core skill, leaving Shu stunned as he recognizes it. Boris proudly commands him to behold the ultimate invention of his life. Shu realizes Boris is a mental type who used artificial hunter brains. To reach the third cycle, Boris explains that rather than studying the system, he focused on researching the hunters who created it, backed by the government. He boasts he has the brains of 179 criminal hunters, asking if Shu honestly believes he can defeat such a massive force. Shu warns him not to be proud of such a repulsive creation. Boris counters, arguing Shu will lose because he is bound by morality. Boris claims this is their power difference, while Shu quietly observes him. He feels his strength draining, but warns Boris that he targeted the wrong person. With a burst of speed, Shu charges, catching Boris completely off guard. Shu unleashes a flurry of rapid strikes, forcing a stunned Boris to dodge. Shu leaps overhead, activating multiple mana skills as Boris struggles to block. He barely blocks the heavy assault, cursing as he activates defensive skills. But Shu activates even more skills, maintaining relentless pressure on his foe. A massive explosion erupts, and Shu watches the dust settle as Boris speaks. The masked man actually thought that would end it. Suddenly, from the rubble, a surge of